It's 900 hours Central Africa time here on Monday, the 8th of May, 2017. They call it Blue Monday, but it's a Monday, Kendall.
And 100%, I'm very happy to be here. My name is Kendall Makamati, and I'm going to be with you for the day.
Jumbo Africa. I'm Elvis Presley. This is Channel 404, the Newsroom. We'll be with you until 12 o'clock, but today we focus on an issue that was very prevalent this weekend. Yeah. President Jacob Zuma went to Vuwani, got there, and of course people did not want to hear.
100%.
In fact, they wanted to hear what the president had said, but it turned violent, and so the president left.
Yeah.
That's why we're asking you this question.
Absolutely. We want to find out from you what could be the solution to the Vuwani crisis, because once again, as Elvis just said, the president was not able to make his speech.
Let us know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on the Facebook page. But and there's a tweet. There's a couple of tweets coming in.
Right.
Alex says, the answer is simple. The government should sit down with the two groups and hear their side of the story.
Siafana says, President Jay-Z must go there and talk to that community about their needs. Vuwani crisis.
Well, and this one from Alex again. This has happened in Bushbuck Ridge, but we ended up and we got what we want. Government should stop being arrogant. Well, these are some of your comments. Keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. But we're also conducting a poll today. And on the poll, we're looking at the issue of the Pan-African Parliament. And we're asking a very simple question, Kendall.
Absolutely. We'd like to find out from you, do you know what the Pan-African Parliament does?
Yeah, there's the question to you. So far, 83 votes in, 18% are saying, yes, we know. But 82% of people on this continent, Kendall, they say they don't know what the Pan-African Parliament does.
Like Freddie Whitehorn, he says nothing. He thinks they do nothing.
Mrs. Zulu says, no, I don't know much about that. Hashtag PAP 2017.
And Tangai Singre says, I heard about the name, but I'm not sure about their goals.
Nahasa Butler says, no, I really don't know. Those are all your comments, so that means you are not informed, so you have to stay tuned so that we can inform you. Our guest will be in a little bit later, Isak Kormo, and he will be chatting to us about the Pan-African Parliament, of course, what their aims, objectives are, and you will be informed as well, so stay tuned. But right now, let's take a look at your news headlines. Service delivery protest in Eldorado Park, south of Johannesburg, has turned violent, leading to road closures around the area. President Jacob Zuma says he will return to Vuwani in Limpopo to address communities about the municipal demarcation dispute. And a 39-year-old former investment banker has become France's youngest leader since Napoleon, with a promise to transcend outdated left-right divisions. So those are all your headlines. But before we get there to the news, let's find out what happened on the sports field this weekend. Kendall, it was disaster for some of us.
It depends exactly which side of the field you're on. You know, if you're a Manchester United fan, yes, you could absolutely say that with your red tie. But if you're wearing a red tie, you could also be celebrating for Arsene Wenger.
And there was no happy people here in South Africa either.
No, there weren't either. Like another back-to-back loss that Pirates suffered. But you know what? We get ahead of ourselves. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
He's done that with a lot of players.
The Absa Premiership title race has reached fever pitch as Bidvest Wits edge Maritzburg United by a single goal to nil, and Mamelodi Sundowns piled the misery on Orlando Pirates with a 2-0 victory at Orlando Stadium.
Tony for holding. Walks in for Walker! Gunners 2 up in a choice!
Arsenal mount a late challenge for a top 4 finish with a 2-0 victory over Manchester United as Arsene Wenger beats a Jose Mourinho team for the first time ever. In the sub-2-hour marathon attempt over the weekend, Kenyan Eliud Kipchoge overshoots the 2-hour mark by a mere 25 seconds. And breaks a massive psychological barrier in the process.
I am a happy man to run a marathon in 2 hours. So I think that the world now is just 25 seconds away.
As Kipchoge said, the world is now 25 seconds away. It will be done sooner than later. More about that later, 10:40. But for now, Inspector Elvis has got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. The situation remains tense in Eldorado Park, south of Johannesburg, following protest action. Residents are demanding to be allocated houses. Several highways have been affected and traffic is being rerouted to alternative routes. Residents have used rubble and burning tires to barricade roads. The service delivery protest in Eldorado Park, south of Johannesburg, has turned also violent, leading to road closures around the area. Motorists are advised to avoid the N12 and the Golden Highway roads. Now we'll see if we can bring you some updates on that story as it unfolds here this morning, so you have to stay tuned. Now, President Jacob Zuma says he will return to Vuwani in Limpopo to address communities about the municipal demarcation dispute. The president was expected to address the Vuwani residents yesterday after a meeting with the pro-Mercado task team, traditional leaders, churches and other stakeholders. However, when the president failed to arrive, residents went on a rampage.
They came in numbers to listen to the president's address. After 6 hours of waiting, it was a no-show. The delegation, led by ministers Fikile Mbalula, Des van Rooyen and David Mahlobo, came instead. But residents did not take kind to the president's absence. All speakers were heckled and prevented from speaking. King Tony Ramabulana also tried to calm them, but all they wanted was the address by the president.
We are very angry because of the decision the president and his security team took. We are not violent people. We are peaceful and we are surprised that he left without addressing us. Now we do not know where we stand.
What happened here today for others might be painful. But for us, we are happy because at least there's now an indication that the Vemba district will be providing services for the time being.
Local leaders were also disappointed by Zuma's decision to pull out.
They wanted to listen to the president. They were called here by the president and the king. The king of the Bavenda tribe was here, but the president was not here. That situation agitated everything.
Agitated residents went on the rampage, pelting vehicles with stones. 3 SABC vehicles were not spared.
Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has apologized for the way in which the Marikana massacre unfolded 5 years ago. But he denied any involvement in the killing of the 34 Lonmin mine workers. The Deputy President was addressing students and academics at Rhodes University.
I participated in trying to stop further deaths from happening. 10 workers had been killed. And my intervention was to say, there is a disaster looming. More workers are being killed and are going to be killed. My role was to try and stop further deaths from happening. Some of the workers had been hacked to death. And yes, I may well have used unfortunate language in the messages that I sent out, and for which I have apologized, and for which I do apologize that I did not use appropriate language. But I never had the intention to have 34 other mine workers killed.
Later at nearby Joza Township, an address to the ANC Cadres Forum, stressing the importance of building branches.
There must be branches that operate well and branches that are well connected to our people. There must also be branches, comrades, which have not been captured.
Ramaphosa vowed that the leadership would fix the cracks within the organization. Jade Lee Paulser, SABC News, Grapestown.
African legislatures from the Pan-African Parliament will this week unveil ambitious plans to root out terrorism on the continent. Now this, as lawmakers from across the continent gather for the Pan-African Parliament's 4th ordinary session in Midrand here in Gauteng.
the battle to become Africa's highest law-making authority, a vision which defines and drives the Pan-African Parliament agenda. Legislatures from across Africa are tasked with discussing and planning for Africa's development. Economic development and the war on terror are set to dominate discussions. Africa's numerous decades-long armed conflicts and the recent terror attacks in Europe will be high on the agenda too. Africa's role in the war on terror is certainly expected to dominate proceedings here at the Pan-African Parliament. But officials here say that Africa's developmental agenda will also not be left behind. Other key topics include plans to fast-track social and economic development. Africa also needs to plan for its growing youth population. Protecting the environment from poaching, pollution, and climate change will be debated, as will reversing the illicit trade in raw materials.
This institution doesn't have the legislative powers, and the ultimate objective is to make sure that one day it becomes a legislative parliament of the continent of Africa.
Under Roger Ndong's presidency, the PAP has worked tirelessly to polish its image. In 2017, the PAP held its maiden sitting in Egypt. Despite a multi-million-dollar investment from the European Union, cost-cutting is part of the turnaround. Changes praised by African leaders. But the PAP is a long way from its legislative dream. From Africa's 54 nations, only 5 countries have ratified the lawmaking protocols so far. Dumala Mohlaudi, SABC News, Midrand.
Now, for more on the story, we joined live from Midrand by our reporter Tumahole Mushlali, who was there, and he'll be with a guest. A very good morning to you, Tumahole. And before you speak to your guest, just paint us a picture as to what is transpiring there this morning.
Well, a very good morning to you, Elvis. As I speak to you now, behind me, the session here at the Pan-African Parliament is now well underway. And usually what happens is that you'll have the Parliament's leader, Mr. Deng. He will then be opening the proceedings formally and welcoming the guests and the various delegations that have come here to make their representations and to participate.
Well, there we lost the feed. We're going to go back to Tumahole shortly, but you don't want to miss it because this is part of your education today. That's why we're running this poll and conducting it to find out how much do you know about the Pan-African Parliament? And if not, you have to stay tuned. Let's move on to other news. We'll come back to it with our guests as well a little bit later. Let's move on to other news making news around the globe. And in France, vive la France! Emmanuel Macron has won the French presidential election. He defeated Marine Le Pen by a wide margin. Macron received about 65% of the vote in the final presidential runoff against Le Pen's 35%.
Le Pen says she has congratulated Macron. His victory has smashed the dominance of France's mainstream parties and will bring huge relief to European Union allies who feared another populist upheaval to follow Britain's vote to quit the EU and Donald Trump's election as U.S. president. The 39-year-old former investment banker will become France's youngest leader since Napoleon, with a promise to transcend outdated left-right divisions. The results come after a massive hacking attack on Mr. Macron's campaign database over the weekend, which saw hundreds of thousands of private emails and official documents dumped online. Voter turnout was recorded at 65.3% as of 5 p.m. Macron's victory came at the tail end of a dramatic campaigning period that has seen a series of scandals, demonstrations, and vicious rhetoric shake news and markets.
In his first speech as the President of France, Emmanuel Macron has promised to unite a torn France and to renew the ties between Europe and its citizens.
It has taken only 3 years for Emmanuel Macron to rise from being an unknown government advisor to be elected France's youngest head of state since Napoleon.
After a long democratic battle, you've chosen to give me your trust, and I want to say how grateful I am. It's a great honor and a great responsibility as nothing was written in stone. I want to thank you.
He added he would defend the vital interest of France and Europe and carry out the fight against terrorism in France and abroad as long as it would be needed.
I will defend Europe, the common destiny that the people of our continent have given to each other. It is our civilization that is at stake, our way of living, our freedom, the way we preserve our common values, initiatives and hopes. I will work to recreate the link between Europe and its people, between Europe and its citizens.
His election represents a long-awaited generational change in French politics, where the same faces have dominated for years.
Meanwhile, far-right leader Marine Le Pen conceded defeat.
With this historic and massive result, French people chose a new president of the Republic and voted for continuity. With this historic and massive result, French people designated the Patriotic and Republican Alliance as the first opposition force to the program of the new president. The first round confirmed a major breakdown of France's political life, with the elimination of old parties. This second round organizes a wide political redraw between the patriots and the globalists. I call on all patriots to join us to take part in the decisive political fight. More than ever in the forthcoming months, France will need you. Long live the Republic, long live France.
Vive la République, vive la France.
Well, there you have it. France has got a new president. Let's now take a look at what's trending on Twitter and on social media. Our picture of the day comes, in fact, before we even go there, let's first go to the social trends and what we have there. Do we have those social trends available? Let's take a look and see what is coming there. There you have it from Nondomiso Njoko. It says, give them what they want. SABC News. This one from Cyril Chilowa says, the only solution in the Vuwani issue is to give the people what they want. Now, this is in relation to the question that we posed to you today. What is the solution to the Vuwani crisis? This one from Munati Khruetboom says, government officials must be truthful about the Vuwani matter and not run around like headless chickens. Hashtag Vuwani. Tangai says, it's very simple. Give the people what they want. They want to be long rather to a certain municipal boundary that is on municipal section. As you know, it's being divided there currently, and they want to put it all together. So give them what they want, says Tangai. Let's now move on to the picture of the day that comes from Mag Lebanon, and he says, congratulations, Emmanuel Macron, the new president of France. Vive la France. There you have it on your picture there. That's the picture from the Chibok girls, rather. Those pictures you can see there, the girls that were handed over by Boko Haram to the Nigerian authorities. Of course, over the weekend, you can see that beautiful picture of the girls returned. We'll take a break and we'll be right back after that.
Did you know the big hole digging started in 1871 and ended on the 14th August 1914? The hole produced 2,722 kgs of diamonds. However, one diamond as huge as 490 carat of stone found in the open prior 1868 gave them the interest to dig. Extracted from 22.5 million tons of soil. Today, the hole sits at a breathtaking 214 meters deep. Kimberley Big Hole attracts tourists from all over the world, taking a vintage tram past the city, then cycling around the Big Hole.
Now this week the focus will fall on the Pan-African Parliament, which kicks off here in Johannesburg today. The fourth ordinary session of the fourth Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament, or PAP, will take place in Midrand. That's from today until the 19th of May 2017 at Gallagher Estate in Midrand. Now the session will be officiated by the PAP President, Roger Nkodo Ndang. The Pan-African Parliament, or PAP, also known as the African Parliament, is the legislative body of the African Union and held its inaugural session in March 2004. The PAP exercises oversight and has advisory and consultative powers, lasting for the first 5 years. Now, we're joined in studio by Channel Africa producer of Spotlight, as well as Africa specialist, Mr. Issa Komo, to tell us a little bit more. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Morning to you, sir.
First and foremostly, what is the role of the Pan-African Parliament?
That's a good one. Right now, the role of the Pan-Africanist Parliament basically is an advisory role. And with that, they've actually sort of brought together representatives from different parliaments in the continent. We find that we've got representatives from the ruling parties and also from the opposition parties. And when they come here, they actually talk of over salient issues affecting African people. Yeah. And from there, the only thing that they can do is just sort of to advise on a course of action.
How is the parliament constituted? Does it embrace the entire continent, all 53 countries that we have?
It embraces all member states of the AU. Yeah, they're all invited there. And it is, I think there's a 5 to 2 or something like that, the ratio from each country. That is the party with the majority in parliament with the opposition. The opposition is actually also represented in the parliament.
Now, as an advisory body, what is the relevance then of PAP?
Well, that's a very good one. Remember when at one time in African Views, in the old days of SABC Africa, I made a statement which people never like, saying that it's a talk shop. Yeah. But basically, I think I would retract from that statement. I think it's a start. Yeah. When we want to see what can it do as a legislative body, basically it's got no legislative powers. And we cannot ask the PAP to have legislative powers when the AU has not got executive powers. So basically, the first thing that has got to start is that the AU has got to have legislative powers, like the European Union has got. The European Union, what to call it, the body itself, it has got the power to set laws for the member states. Yeah, be it in economics, trade, human rights, a lot. And I think we've got to get there. But then the thing, it's an event. It's not. It's a process, or it's not an event. So with that, I think let's say that it's a start, but people should push. Yeah, the people should actually push for countries, for the AU, to come up and have those executive powers, and the Pan-Africanist Parliament to have those legislative powers. They are needed, especially on the side of human rights. Yeah. You find we've got a human rights court, human and people's rights court, yeah, and a commission, but it's powerless because the big powers, they do not want to actually sign on to those mandates. And I think that's a place where noise could be made, that people should actually sort of accede to those demands.
Now, you've been complimentary in your criticism by saying it's a talk shop. Others are saying, and many has indicated, that the PAP, like the AU, is a toothless bulldog. Do you think that the PAP should have those legislative powers in order to make the decisions that it's supposed to? And won't that also maybe indicate that there would be overreach?
You know, if you have got legislative power, you make legislative power for an executive. Yeah, it's no different from even a country, how the state runs. But if the executive, which is the AU, does not have those teeth that people are crying for, what's the use of having executive powers? You're going to have executive powers to implement what? Yeah, I mean, sort of those legislative powers to legislate what? Who's going to implement it? But I think we have got to push. It's a thing which is supposed to happen. And the way it happens, as I said, again, it's going to take time. Yeah, those bodies right now, they don't have the powers. But I mean to say, as time is going, yeah, the push will come from the bottom. It's pointless criticizing. People should organize and push for those powers to be given to those bodies. And I think very soon you're going to see the revolt of the people. I mean, Africa is actually in a mess. And they may talk a lot about its economy, everything. It's in a mess. The youths are unemployed. And it's actually going to push the security thing. It's very precarious. And so the things have to change.
Yes. So Mr. Khoma will talk about some of the issues currently at hand and what the Pan-African Parliament is there for and what they should do in terms of their advisory capacity. But let's first now go back to Midrand, where the Pan-African Parliament is currently sitting, and let's see what's happening there. Let's cross there live.
Marie-Claire Jean Monte.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much, Elvis. And it's all systems go here at the Pan-African Parliament in Midrand. As I speak to you now, behind me, parliamentarians are being sworn in, officially taking their oath of office and looking forward to beginning their term as Pan-African parliamentarians. And look, according to what we have learned over the last few days with the meetings of the ambassadors, the agenda is jam-packed. Today, the highlights will be, of course, the President of Burkina Faso and the President of Malawi are expected to come and grace the Pan-African Parliament. Over the last couple of years, despite what the critics have been saying about the Pan-African Parliament not having any teeth and not being able to enforce any change by virtue of not being able to make any laws, we've seen that it has had the endorsement and support of very high-profile heads of state in Africa, across Africa, saying that the vision to make it eventually a lawmaking institution is what everyone is pulling towards. I'm now joined by the Deputy Clerk of the Pan-African Parliament. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Mr. Robert.
Thank you very much.
In terms of the agenda, we see that the Pan-African Parliament has been very aggressive in terms of being hands-on and being seen to be effective. You've gone across the continent, election observer missions. You've even gone so far as to raise your own budget. Why is the Pan-African Parliament changing tact from being more like an advisory body to be seen to be trying to get hands-on?
Thank you very much. As you rightly pointed out, the aim of setting up the Parliament in the first place was for it to be a mainly legislative organ of the African Union, albeit we needed at least 28 ratification of the new protocol for that to take effect. So at the initial stage, we are mainly an advisory and compliance body monitoring issues in the AU in general. But as you can see what the European Parliament does, the aim is to bring the African countries together and harmonize their rules and laws across the continent so that we won't have issues where when you go into another country, you have a different set of laws and you have problems on how to comply with these laws. So ultimately, this integration issue is the agenda that drives the Parliament. And this Parliament's role and main aim is to ensure that the legislative part becomes a reality, because then we will be able to harmonize our laws across the continent. And one law applicable to one country will go throughout the continent. And it will also help for those countries, small countries that cannot even enact their own laws or have problem complying with issues, that the Parliament has a unanimous activity that will roll out and be domesticated in each of these countries.
We've seen that in terms of ratifying this agreement, there's been some resistance from some quarters, some nations feeling that perhaps their sovereignty might be brought into question or might be brought, might be threatened. How do you respond to those concerns?
I think you have to understand where we are coming from. Basically, we have been divided by the colonialists into all different kinds of countries, and with different dialects. Despite our local dialects, we all use French, English, Portuguese. So we have a lot of reconciliation and unanimity to bring because of the colonial biases. So you find out that this integration agenda, a lot of countries have thoughts that this is going to affect their sovereignty, but it is not. It's just like the United States of America or the European Union. There are certain laws that the countries will have to stick to, maybe due to their nature or due to their situation, and these things will be acceptable.
But the overall main key aspects, for example, on terrorism, on gender issues, on other issues that are unanimous throughout the continent, but are not unanimously applicable or legislated, it would be easier to have a generic one from the parliament than to have each country enact its own one. And it will be faster. But notwithstanding, I understand the concerns which is affecting the ratification, but you realize that we started from zero, and it was only Mali from 2014 that ratified the protocol. But now we are talking about almost 6 countries. And we have over 12 countries that signed, and only to deposit the instrument ratified and deposit it to the AU is remaining.
If I can interrupt there, talking about the countries picking up momentum and the role the PAP can play. What about this sticky issue of Africa's relationship with the International Criminal Court? How will the PAP eventually be an instrument that can smooth things over, or be an instrument that can solve that issue?
Yes, the International Criminal Court is an important body worldwide, and is recognized, as you know, by more African countries than less. The issue is that at the moment, because we don't have a legislative organ in the African Union, the whole issue is now dealt with at the executive level at the AU. And the parliament, being only an advisory body, has to toe that line. If it becomes a legislative body, the parliament would now have to reconsider, what kind of issues, what kind of relevance that this ICC will have in terms of its relation with Africa. At the moment, it is all bilateral, country to country, and the AU runs the program because the AU is the mother body. And unfortunately, the AU doesn't have a legislative organ. The organ is Pan-African Parliament. Right. But until the Parliament has its mandate through its protocol, it cannot go there.
We're going to have to leave it there. We've run out of time. Thank you very much. That was Yusufa Jobe, and he is, of course, the clerk of the Pan-African Parliament. With that, it's back to you in the studio.
Well, there you have it. We'll continue this discussion to inform you about the Pan-African Parliament, so you don't want to miss it. But right now, breaking story, Elvis Ramusabudi, the man accused of plotting to kill the president and other high-profile people. Let's go to court live.
State versus Elvis Ramusabudi, case number 41-531 of 2017. It is the 8th of May 2017. Appearances are available except today for the defense. Standing in for Mr. Ramadili is Mr. Macron. Mr. Macron, as a court. We'll check today's for judgment on that.
Thank you. Ms. Cannon. Mr. Makanya, just one aspect that I think was not addressed in the affidavit, and I realized it when working on a judgment. Are you able to tell the court, does your client have a passport?
So far, my instructions are that he does not have a passport, he has not applied for it, and he does not intend to apply for one in the near future.
Thank you. Mr. Ramusaburi, I will proceed to hand down a judgment in a bail application. For a number of reasons, the issues that were raised and of course the public interest, I decided to have it in writing, and it's just a few pages. You may be seated as I read along, and I will tell you when to stand up. This is an application in which Mr. Elvis Ramaphosa, the applicant, seeks to be released on bail pending the finalization of the investigations and trial in this case. He was arrested on 26 April 2017 and has since been in custody. He faces 2 counts of incitement to commit murder. The application for bail is opposed by the state. The application was supported by an affidavit, and so was the opposition thereof. The affidavits in support and in opposition of the application were received and marked as Exhibit A and B in the proceedings. I proceed to deal with the legislation on bail. It is important to unpack the metrics of the applicable legislation before applying the facts thereto. Section 60 of Act 51 of 1977, that is the Criminal Procedure Act, embodies all the applicable principles that should guide this application. As a point of departure, it is necessary to understand that Section 60 of the Criminal Procedure Act divides all crimes into 3 categories based on their gravity and seriousness. First is Schedule 6 offenses, for which the Criminal Procedure Act provides as follows. I quote, "The court shall order that the accused be detained in custody until he or she is dealt with in accordance with the law, unless the accused, having been afforded a reasonable opportunity to do so, adduces evidence which satisfies the court that exceptional circumstances exist which, in the interest of justice, permit his or her release." And to this, I refer to Section 60, subsection 11A of the Criminal Procedure Act. It suffices for now to merely state that Schedule 6 offenses are the most serious crimes imaginable in our legal system. This provision does not take away an accused person's constitutional right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty by the court of law, as was held in State v. Dlamini, State v. Gadla and others, State v. Jobert, State v. Skitegat, 1999, Volume 7, BCLR, page 771, in bracket CC for the Constitutional Court. It is for this reason that there are suspects out on bail even when they face Schedule 6 offenses. I will state nothing further in respect of this category, since the applicant is not facing a Schedule 6 offense. Second is the category of Schedule 5 offenses. In respect of this category, the Criminal Procedure Act provides as follows, I quote, "The court shall order that the accused be detained in custody until he or she is dealt with in accordance with the law, unless the accused, having been afforded a reasonable opportunity to do so, adduces evidence which satisfies the court that the interests of justice permit his or her release," close quote. And to this, I refer to Section 60, subsection 11B of the Criminal Procedure Act. While Schedule 5 offenses are also very serious, they are generally less serious compared to those listed in Schedule 6. It is for this reason that the onus is on the accused It is for this reason that the onus on the accused facing a Schedule 5 offense is merely to show that the interests of justice permit his or her release from custody, as opposed to when he or she faces a Schedule 6 offense, where he or she has to show exceptional circumstances which, in the interest of justice, permit his or her release on bail. The offenses listed in Schedule 5 are inter alia murder, and treason. I mention these examples because at one stage or another, they were also alluded to the case the applicant faces in CASO. It suffices for present purposes that the applicant is not facing a Schedule 5 offense, and as such, nothing further shall be stated in respect of this schedule. The last category is all the other offenses not listed in Schedule 5 or 6. This will be what counsel for the state and the defense referred to in this application as Schedule 1 offenses. My reluctance in calling these crimes Schedule 1 offenses is because, unlike Schedule 5 and 6, Schedule 1 does not exist in the Criminal Procedure Act for bail application purposes. It is not even referred to in Section 60, subsection 11, dealing with various schedules for bail application purposes. It is for this reason that all the offenses listed in Schedule 5 and 6 are also repeated in Schedule 1. The category of offenses not listed in either Schedule 5 or 6 can be classified as less serious offenses. It is this category that deserves much attention for purposes of this application, in that the offenses the applicant faces are classified therein. The bail provision in respect of the category of offenses not listed in Schedule 5 or 6 reads as follows, I quote, "An accused who is in custody in respect of an offense shall, subject to provisions of Section 50, subsection 6, be entitled to be released on bail at any stage preceding his or her conviction in respect of such offense, if the court is satisfied that the interests of justice so permit." Close quote. And to this end, I refer to Section 60, subsection 1A of the Criminal Procedure Act. The difference in approach to the application for bail in which applicants face offenses in this category and those in Schedule 5 and 6 is that in this category, the accused can claim to be released as an entitlement. Further to this, the onus is on the state to satisfy the court that the release of an accused facing an offense not listed in Schedule 5 or 6 will not be in the interest of justice, or that the interests of justice demand his or her further detention. I now proceed to deal with the facts as presented by the state in opposing bail. The applicant opted to be silent, and as such, the court does not have his side of the case in respect of the merits. Facts of the case. It is alleged in respect of count 1 that the applicant sent a total of 4 letters to a certain entity or complainant requesting support in the amount of 60 million rand in order to finance an undercover plot to assassinate the beneficiaries of the state capture regime in the interests of South Africa. The beneficiaries listed are, amongst others, President Jacob Zuma, four members of the Gupta family, 3 cabinet ministers, a deputy minister, a premier, and the head of the National Prosecuting Authority, NPA. The first of these letters was sent in October 2016, and a case was opened by the recipient with the police in November 2016. It is alleged in respect of count 2 that in March 2017, 5 months after receiving no financial support he had sought in respect of count number 1, The applicant wrote a letter addressed to Mr. A.J. Gupta requesting support in the amount of 75 million rand in order to finance an undercover plot to assassinate people who support white monopoly capitalists in the interest of South Africa. Mr. A.J. Gupta is one of those the applicant had listed as persons that should be assassinated when he sought financial support in respect of count number 1. The people who supported the so-called white monopoly capitalists were listed as Mr. Mcebisi Jonas, Advocate Tulima Donsela, Ms. Vicky Menta, and Mr. Temba Maseko. Since the applicant's details, such as his names, his personal banking details, residential address, and his cell phone numbers were contained in one or more of these letters, a trap was set out with the authorization of the Director of Public Prosecutions, Gauteng Local Division in Johannesburg. As part of the trap, the applicant was invited by the recipient of his letters in count number 1 to a meeting where he was to explain and give further details on his mission. The applicant obliged, and unbeknown to him, the whole trap, his demonstration and explanation was recorded in a video. When afforded an opportunity to rebut any of the allegations made against him, the applicant presented an affidavit in which he opted not to tackle the merits of the case. Contrary to what has been reported outside this courtroom, he did not even indicate how he intends to plead to the 2 charges. For this reason, I am of a view that the facts against the applicant are strong and will not be easy to dispute if the case goes on trial. I am careful not to suggest that the case against the accused is strong, because that will depend on the charges that will be preferred against him by the state. I will deal with this aspect more broadly shortly. I proceed to deal with the applicable law. In opposing bail, the state submitted that if released on bail, the applicant will endanger the safety of certain persons and/or will commit another Schedule I offense. Although merits of the case is for the trial court to consider, the court dealing with bail application has a duty to consider the facts for purposes of weighing if there is a strong case to answer and the past conduct of the applicant so as to answer if there is likelihood for the applicant to commit Schedule I offenses as argued. And to this end, I refer to State v. Mauk, 1999, Volume 2, SACR, page 479 in brackets W, and State v. Jonas and others, 1998, Volume 2, SACR, page 677 in brackets SE. In State v. Chabalala, referred to Supra, that is 1998, Volume 2, SACR, page 259 in brackets C. The court held the following, I quote, "In cases not governed by Section 60, subsection 11, if bail is to be denied, the state must establish that the applicant, if released, would attempt to influence or intimidate witnesses or tamper with evidence. Refusal on the basis that appellant will interfere with state witnesses, appeal against refusal, court, and underline, the court must assess the appellant's future conduct in the light of existing or historical facts and circumstances. In granting or refusing bail, The court must weigh the interests of justice against the accused's right to personal freedom and the possible prejudice which she would be likely to suffer as a result of further detention. Close quote. I proceed to deal, therefore, with the strength of the state case. The offense of incitement to commit a crime is not rooted in common law, but statutory law. Section 18, subsection 2 of the Rituals Assemblies Act, number 17 of 1956 provides as follows, I quote, "Any person who conspires with any other person to aid or procure the commission or to commit or B, incites, instigates, commands, or procures any other person to commit any offense, whether at common law or against a statute or statutory regulation, shall be guilty of an offense and liable on conviction to the punishment to which a person convicted of actually committing that offense would be liable." Close quote. It is for this reason that I deem it necessary to look into the merits of the case and the charges preferred against the applicant. About 53 cases are reported in the South African criminal law reports dealing with the crime of inciting another to commit crime. All of these have one common denominator to the effect that the accused or the appellant, as the case may be, incited another person to commit a crime, the most common of which in these reported cases is murder. If the literal interpretation of statutes was to be adopted, as was the case in the 53 cases referred to above, it will mean that the applicant commits the crime of incitement to commit murder if he approaches anyone, like a sniper or the hitman, incites, requests, encourages, or motivates him to murder a person with or without a payment, irrespective of whether the said person agrees or not, for the hitman's refusal to carry out the incited act is no defense. And to this end, I refer to State versus Shumpa and another, 2008, volume 1, SACR, page 126, in brackets E. Equally, if anyone was to encourage the applicant to commit murder at a fee or not, he would be guilty of the crime of inciting another person to commit a crime of murder. The facts presented suggest that the applicant approached people asking them to incite him, which will translate to inciting them to incite him to commit murder. It is committing murder that is a crime. Whether the Rituals Assemblies Act can extend or be extended to cover cases of inciting to incite, if one can use the said phrase, remains to be seen and tested on trial. In the same breath, a question may be justifiably asked as to whether the arrest of the applicant was done prematurely, while the trap could have been allowed to flow to the stages where the applicant will start recruiting, which is inciting, the parties to help him commit the murder, if that was going to happen in the first place. Perhaps the point of departure should be to ask whether any statute criminalizes soliciting funds for or to promote criminal activities. The picture portrayed to this court is rather of an unemployed, penniless young man who seems desperate to make quick money, no matter how dirty. Counsel for the state indicated that at first they thought it could be a 419 scam in reference to a Nigerian criminal code, that is section 419, that criminalizes fraud activities of this nature. In 419 scams, the culprit approaches an unsuspecting member of public or the victim through post, email, SMSs, or even phone calls, promising him heaven and earth. For most people, heaven and earth will be riches he never worked for, decent jobs, even when he does not qualify, inheritance in dollars from strangers and others. For such riches to be released, the victim will be required to pay advance or clearance fee. No matter how much the victim pays, the promised riches will never reach him, because this was a scam to defraud him right from the start. Can it be that the applicant was in a scam in which he promised heaven and earth to the complainants in this case? If that be the case, he must have concluded then that heaven and earth for the Gupta family and the unnamed complainant in count 1 cannot be riches, maybe believing they already have such riches. But the killing of persons he listed as he lured them into paying him some cash, just as it is the case in 419 scam. The victims would kiss goodbye to their money and not see the heaven and earth promised. This possibility remains possible and cannot be totally excluded, at least as an alternative. I now deal with the interests of justice and the accused's personal circumstances. Section 60, subsection 4 of the Criminal Procedure Act provides the following, I quote, "The interests of justice do not permit the release from detention of an accused where one or more of the following grounds are established. A, where there is likelihood that the accused, if he or she were released on bail, will endanger the safety of the public or any particular person, or will commit a Schedule 1 offense. B, where there is the likelihood that the accused, if he or she were released on bail, will attempt to evade his or her trial. Or C, where there is the likelihood that the accused, if he or she were released on bail, will attempt to influence or intimidate witnesses or to conceal or destroy evidence. D, or where there is the likelihood that the accused, if he or she were released on bail, will undermine or jeopardize the objectives or the proper functioning of the criminal justice system, including the bail system. And E, where in exceptional circumstances there is the likelihood that the release of the accused will disturb the public order or undermine the public peace or security. Whether the applicant poses a danger to anyone or that he may commit further crimes if released on bail has to be answered based on his past conduct. And to this end, I refer to the matter of State versus Chabalala quoted above. Nothing presented in this bail application, however, suggests that the applicant is capable of carrying out any of the promises made to the complainant. In a meeting held with him, he claimed that he already had a rifle. But a search conducted later at his home, the only place he has ever called home since birth, drew nil. If facts presented by the state are to be accepted as true, it would appear the applicant does not belong to any political ideology to which his beliefs are firmly rooted. One moment he presents himself as willing to assassinate the so-called state capture beneficiaries for the sake of the country. When no cash is forthcoming, he jumps to the other side, presenting himself as the protector of the very family he initially wanted to wipe out. The manner in which these plans are presented to the complainant was very immature. For the applicant to present himself without any attempt to conceal his identity, addresses, and phone numbers made the state to even consider bringing an application for the accused to be referred for mental observation. It took about 5 to 6 months for the applicant to be arrested since the case was opened in November 2016. During this period, he failed to recruit a single sniper, let alone making such an attempt. If he did, no such evidence was presented to this court. Every piece of evidence suggests that he worked alone. Against this background, the following facts appear undisputed: that the accused is not a flight risk. His address has been confirmed by the investigating officer. There is no evidence suggesting that the accused has ever been outside the Republic of South Africa. He does not own a passport. He has no previous convictions and is not out on bail on any charge. He is unmarried but a father of 1 child. He studied up to grade 10 and indeed is unemployed. Over months of monitoring his banking details, his banking account balance was always on 0. He resides with his parents, who are pensioners, at their house. Chances of him evading trial appear to be very limited. A long time that lapsed after the case was opened with the police without any conduct on his part that harms anyone also indicates to this court no one could be in danger. From the time he wrote the first letter, it appears he did not incite anyone into his plans. And in conclusion, it needs not be forgotten that as per his constitutional right, he remains innocent until proven guilty. For these reasons, the court is not convinced that the continuous detention of the applicant pending the investigation and trial would be in the interest of justice. Although the applicant indicated that he has only 1,000 rand available for bail, the court has to balance the gravity of his deeds against the amount that can be regarded as sufficient enough to serve as security for him to attend court at all times. It has to be sufficient enough to make the applicant think twice if he gets tempted to evade trial, since this is the amount that will be forfeited to the state if he fails to attend court. Equally, the amount need not be too high, so much that it will amount to a refusal of bail, given the fact that he is unemployed and still dependent on his parents, who are pensioners. Mr. Ramaphosa, you may stand up. To this end, bail is therefore fixed for the accused in the amount of 3,000 rand with the following conditions. 1, that the accused appears in court on all dates the case is remanded to. 2, and stays present until he is excused by the court. 2, The accused does not contact directly or indirectly any of the witnesses known to him. All the persons listed for assassination as state capture beneficiaries or persons in support of the white monopoly capitalists. 3, the accused does not change his residential address without notifying the investigating officer of such change. 4, the accused is to report at his local police station every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. pending the finalization of this case. And Mr. Makanya, I will need you to assist me here as to the name of the police station that will be relevant here. Please.
My instructions are that it is Richard Police Station in Vuwani.
So tell me, it's spelled? T-D-A-T. T-A-D.
My apologies, it's R-I-E-T-G-A-T.
G-A-T. Thank you. Then it will read the accused reports at Richard Police Station every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. pending the finalization of this case. E, that is number 5 rather. The accused does not apply for a passport pending the finalization of this case. And lastly, number 6, the accused is not to leave the province of Gauteng without permission by the investigating officer. If the accused fails to adhere to any of these conditions, a warrant of arrest will be authorized against him and bail money will be forfeited to the state and may result in his detention without bail pending the finalization of this case. Do you understand? Thank you. To what date? Before I do postpone the matter.
Yes, my colleague and I will read to the 6th of July for further investigations.
Right. I understand I can postpone the matter to that day. In fact, I will do that. But I wanted to find out, the trial up until now will be done right here, or you intend to move it?
This point is still decided that it will stay at the regional court. It will change our role before the court. Of course, it depends on what's going to come from the further investigation.
Right.
At this point, it will stay at the regional court.
That's fine. Is it fine if I have the matter stand down for a while, ask you to take the charge sheet to Court 23 for court allocation, so that come the remand date, I postpone the matter to the court in which it will stay? Because having done the bail application, I will not be eligible to deal with the trial in any event. Just a minute. I have no problem with that if that's what you're preferring, that it stays. Are you fine with that, sir? Thank you. Mr. Ramaphosa, I'm postponing your matter until the 6th day of July, 2017, back to this court. That's court number 17. You will be in custody. However, bail is fixed for you with the conditions that were indicated. If you pay, you will be released. Adhere to all these conditions. You can request a copy of the conditions from the clerks of the court before you leave, if you pay bail, that is. And I want to reiterate this. If you fail to adhere to any of these conditions, bail will be cancelled, and you may stay in custody until the case is finalized. Okay. We'll see you then. You should be here 8:30 in the morning. You are excused. You are excused, sir. You are excused too. Thank you.
The alleged assassination plotter Elvis Ramaphosa given bail of 3,000 rand. We'll keep you posted on the stories. But today, as you know, it's an information and education session, and the focus falls on the Pan-African Parliament, which kicked off in Johannesburg today, this morning. The fourth ordinary session of the fourth Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament, or the PAP as they call it, is happening in Midrand from today the 8th up until the 19th of May. Now, to discuss the issues surrounding the PAP further with me, we have in studio the Channel Africa producer of Spotlight, Mr. Issa Komo, as well as Africa Specialist. Sir, we continue this discussion on the PAP, and we've also conducting that poll where we're asking people, do they know about the Pan-African Parliament? And a lot of them are saying they don't know. If we can't put up that poll, we can. If we can't put it up, we can let you know where the numbers stand and where do we stand. But as soon as we can get it, we'll put it up. And we ask the question, of course, do you know what the Pan-African Parliament is about? But discussing the issues at hand, we're talking about the Parliament as being an advisory body to governments. What sort of advice do they provide to the African governments?
Well, not to the African government, but to the AU. The advice is just sort of advice on what they think should happen and what where they think the whole thing should go. Yeah, I mean, so the African debates should go. Issues of human rights and the like. I mean, the last time they talked about issues of global warming, and these are real issues. Yeah, it's those type of issues. Yes. But again, I would like to actually sort of come back and say that the Pan-Africanist Parliament is actually a start of a very important organ which is needed in the continent.
And what is that?
Yeah. Now, I'll take time to explain it. You see, if you look at the African continent, things have changed in the neoliberal and globalized world. Now you find that with globalization and also the domination of the World Trade Organization and the politics of Africa, Africa has been opened out to the corporate world, to corporate finance. And the African countries, they seem to be powerless, and they are powerless. Yeah? But then we find that in the whole, not discourse, but engagement, it is the state organ or the political elites of African political elites with the corporate world. And the African people have been totally marginalized. Yeah? We find that issues have been forced on Africa and African people, issues of land ownership, land grab, issues for the environment, issues of the mineral resources. Yeah. And these are agreements between two bodies. And the results we are seeing them, you know, illegal cash flows and whatnot, Africans being marginalized. Now there's a danger. Now Africans need a body which is going to, the African people I'm talking about, they need an organ which is going to represent them and which can actually veto and which can actually place conditions on how this engagement should be had. You know, we look at right now we look at the CEO of Nestle. he has suggested that African water resources, freshwater resources, should be privatized. Yeah.
Which is a difficult issue to do.
It's in the pipeline if Africans don't come up.
Because access to water is very important.
Yeah, they've done so in California. It's sort of thing which is far-fetched. Yeah, land is being taken over, African land. Yeah, African resources. People are complaining that Africa, but they say about over 150 billion irregular cash flows that are taking place from Africa. What are the African people getting? But that's the neoliberal setup. Yeah. But then we find that I think the African people have got to set conditions for engagement with the corporate world.
And is that perhaps the role of the Pan-African Parliament?
That should be the role. That's where we should take it to. Yeah, and when we take it there, the representation in the African Union has got to change. You should not just say that these people are going to come from the legislative bodies of countries, because those legislative bodies of countries, the majority are people who are actually the political elites. There should be some other form of representation. The women organization are supposed to be the people's organization, the civil organization, African civil organization. I'm not talking about civil organizations which are sponsored by the West, there are many people who can sponsor, liberals who sponsor civil organizations here. And the real thing, women organization, youth, the peasantry, they've got to be represented, and that's where in fact, it's going to be it's got to be developed to be a very important body.
While we're talking about the Pan-African Parliament, we're showing you live visuals, of course, today happening in Eldorado Park coming through. We'll see if we can get hold of our reporter to give us some feedback as to what is happening there while we're discussing a very important issue, and that is the Pan-African Parliament and, of course, their role. But when we go back, and we'll go back to that, to Eldorado Park in a short while to give us some live pictures and, of course, to get a report. But while we're talking about the Pan-African Parliament, looking at the challenges confronting the Pan-African Parliament, what would you suggest would those be, Mr. Coleman?
Well, the challenges confronting the Pan-African Parliament, I think, is the constitution. It's how it's constituted. Yeah, I mean to say these are just sort of representative of parliamentarians from the different member countries. Yeah, and that is not enough. I mean to say, as I said, we need to get the real people. The real people are the peasants. There's nobody who's talking for the peasants. And the African peasantry is getting marginalized with the land grab. The land grab issues, unfortunately, is being pushed also by the AU. The AU, in line with the IMF and other financial bodies, they're actually sort of coming up to say, talk under the buzzword of food security, to come and get in corporate world, to come, things like Monsanto, taking over land and actually doing whatever they want to do. Issues of the environment, it's not even looked upon. And the people are just there looking on. But these people don't have a voice. Now, those people need to be given a voice. And the place where they're supposed to be given a voice, it's this parliament. But then we cannot say that we are going to take parliamentarians from, let's say, our Cape Town thing who's going to talk about issues of peasants in northern Limpopo, or in somewhere. That's just an example. No, they will never. They will talk about things which are actually being pushed from where the political parties the things there.
Talking about land grabs, the issues confronting the residents of Eldorado Park right now is land grabs there. They're talking about land. We're going to come back to that story to find out what is going there on the ground, so you don't want to miss it. You want to stay tuned right here. Let's now go back to the Pan-African Parliament, which is currently sitting in Madrid.
And displacement, in addition to ethnic and religious discrimination. We call upon the world to support it against what the occupying force, the state of Israel, which has all weapons of mass destruction. Israel is using weapons against civilians, innocent civilians, children and women. We call on the condemnation of all these crimes and this system of apartheid and the violation of the rights of prisoners in Israeli prisons. The Palestinian people and the Arab nation are calling for the establishment of a free, independent Palestinian state on the borders of 1967 with East Jerusalem as its capital. This is in line with the principles of international law and the decisions of the United Nations and the Arab Peace Initiative. Honorable President, honorable members of the Pan-African Parliament, dear participants, I have come here today as a representative of the Arab nation. I have a message of love, friendship, peace, consultation, cooperation and coordination on all major issues that touch on the interests and the dignity of the African and the Arab people. I'm looking forward to implementing this partnership with you, Mr. President, and the members of the Pan-African Parliament from all African states in order to overcome the challenges and eradicate all the hurdles on the way of implementing cooperation between Arab and African nations. Finally, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all of you and to you, President of the Pan-African Parliament, for being keen on our participation in this historic meeting. I wish you full success in your proceedings in this session. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Excellency. Dear colleagues, I would like to convey to you the apologies of the Honourable Speaker of the National Assembly of the Republic of South Africa, who for very late commitments had to leave this House. He conveyed to you his welcome in the Republic of South Africa. Dear colleagues, as I indicated, our session is opening in a particular context with the presence of two eminent personalities, with His Excellency Marc Christian Kabore, President of Burkina Faso, and our guest of honor, also His Excellency Professor Arthur Mutharika, President of the Republic of Malawi. He's also our guest of honor. Now I would like to adjourn our meeting to revamp your energy and to come back here to pay a tribute and to give a warm welcome to our hosts. The session stands adjourned. It shall resume at 11 hours. Thank you.
Sont attendus à l'accueil les membres du bureau, le représentant de la ministre de la Coopération et les invités spéciaux.
That's the Pan-African Parliament there for you live in Midrand. We continue our discussion here with Channel Africa producer of Spotlight as well as Africa specialist, Mr. Isa Komu, here in studio. I want to go back, Mr. Komu, to the legislative powers that the Pan-African Parliament is seeking. How possible is that, number one, and what would it mean for the Pan-African Parliament and for the African Union?
Well, the legislative powers which is seeking, but I don't know for what end they are looking for those powers. But what it would actually mean, it will mean that there will be a sort of an intervention in the structuring of African economies or African policies on economy, on land ownership, on environment, terrorism, on human rights, in fact, issues of global migration, I'm not even migration within Africa, infrastructure, and even ownership of resources. I'll give you a very good example. A country like Venezuela, when they bring in foreign oil companies to come and exploit their oil, they've got a sunset clause in it. that those resources are going to be exploited at such a rate and for so many years, after which those resources, they revert back to the state. Yeah? We, the Africans...
Which is beneficiation to an extent.
Yeah, you, the Africans, you actually give it to them until thy kingdom come. Yeah? Which is just, I don't know. I mean, we don't agree with that. I mean, to say that with African property rights, you know, the things... And again, we should actually engage in many issues on rights. Yeah, I mean, African rights. We've got to look at the whole issue of rights on the African continent from an African ontological perspective, yeah, which actually demand a different epistemic approach. Yeah, epistemic is a philosophical. For a simple example, things like property rights. The property rights that we have here, that we are actually being practiced and pushed onto Africans, these are property rights which are basically European. And they're perfected by a gentleman in the 1700s called John Locke. Yeah, where he talk of property, ownership of a person's own self that cannot be enslaved, but also it comes to private property. But African private property, it's there, you know, it comes from access to properties for usage. Yeah, but we've got to come up with these things here, and these have got to be done at the African body, like the African Union. And we should actually tell people coming to Africa, these are how we actually operate. These are our parameters. Yeah.
There we have on the screen there some of the things that the PAP functions, which include to facilitate the effective implementation of the OAU's and Africa Economic Communities policies and objectives, and ultimately the African Union, which of course they need to stand by. It also needs to work towards the harmonization and the coordination of member states' laws, and they have to make recommendations aimed at contributing to the attainment of the OAU or the AU's objectives, and draw attention to the challenges facing the integration process in Africa, as well as the strategies for dealing with them. So these are some of the issues that a PAP is doing. But in conclusion, Mr. Komo, what should be the focus then of the PAP moving forward, looking as we move towards the fourth industrial revolution?
Well, moving forward, I think the PAP should actually come up with much more salient topics that will be discussed. Yeah, the last time when, just for example, to digress a bit, the last time when they were here, they were discussing about moving the PAP to another country other than Johannesburg because of certain delegates were robbed. Yeah, I think that's an issue of just, it's a minor issue. But I mean to say that the PAP should actually come now with a better agenda, well, as they're talking about issues of the issues which are really affecting people, and also the well-being of African countries and Africa. Yeah, and with that we need, I'm saying it again, you need a better representation, people with deeper thoughts, and who look at issues further than just sort of a face value. And I think that's where we really need to change the quality of people going there. And with that, the agendas are going to come in. We cannot push them from outside. Yeah.
Mr. Komo, as usual, I thank you so much for your insight into the African continent and the African stories.
Thank you for having me.
That was Channel Africa producer of Spotlight, as well as African specialist, Mr. Issa Komo. We'll take a short break. We'll be right after that with your sports news. But remember, we're also asking you the question, can we have the question as well as perhaps the poll to see what you are saying currently? Quickly, the question on your screen there, what could be the solution to the Vuwani crisis? That's the question that we posed to you. You've tweeted us about that. And we're also asking you on the poll, what do you know about the Pan-African Parliament and what they do? Let's take a look at the poll. If the poll is up, if we can, get it up quickly. Yes? Yes? Well, there we go. Do you know what the Pan-African Parliament does? So far, 83 votes in. It looks like it hasn't been updated. There it is now, 174 votes in. 88%, Mr. Komo, of people on the African continent are saying they don't know what the Pan-African Parliament does. Only 12% say they're in the know. Those probably some of the delegates in Midrand sitting there. These are some of your comments. Is there comments coming from the poll as well as the question? Let's take a look. There's no comments right now, so we'll take a short break and we'll be right back after that.
Water-wise, water is an essential need. The scarcity of it could lead to loss of many lives, including livestock, plants, and much more. It requires us to use it sparingly and responsibly in times of need, failing which our taps and sanitation will not function. For more on water and weather issues, stay tuned to News Today, every Friday at 4:45 Central African Time. SABC News, making you water-wise.
Good morning, welcome back. We start off this sports bulletin with the story that's been the rage the entire weekend, where log leaders Bidvest Wits maintained their 3-point lead at the top of the absolute premiership after a slender 1-0 victory over Maritzburg United. But hot on their heels are defending champions Mamelodi Sundowns, who got a crucial 2-0 win over Orlando Pirates in Soweto. Students are on 57 points, while the Brazilians are 3 points adrift on 54, with only 3 games remaining.
Still fresh in the minds of many soccer followers in South Africa was the 6-0 drubbing Orlando Pirates suffered at the hands of Mamelodi Sundowns in Pretoria 3 months ago. Sundowns were the better side in the opening stages and were rewarded in the 25th minute with a goal from Kama Billiard.
And yes, it's home. Kama Billiard has goal number 7 in the league this season.
Pirates fought back immediately, but were denied by keeper Dennis Onyango. The home side threw everything forward, but Onyango denied them once again on the stroke of half-time.
Dennis Onyango at full stretch denies Orlando Pirates.
Ivorian Yannick Zagri stretched the visitors' lead early in the second half.
Mamelodi Sundowns in front. A poor piece of Pirates defending has been punished.
However, Bucks did not do enough to claw their way back into the match. Instead, the Brazilians were the more attack-minded side, with Billiard denied by the crossbar late in the match. Meanwhile, Bidvest Wits, who have proved to be a hard nut to crack when playing at home, came up against a revived Maritzburg United side playing under caretaker coach Fadlu Davids. Kedlenkis wasted a golden opportunity to put the visitors ahead earlier on. Mokakulu Dingele was also wasteful in front of goal midway through the first half. There was still no goal at half-time. Pumlani Nchangase broke the deadlock 6 minutes into the second half, putting the log leaders ahead. Maritzburg tried hard to draw level, but it was not to be. Sfiso Ramara, SABC News.
And so it is that one of the most thrilling absolute premiership title races in recent memory has reached fever pitch. And with just 3 matches to go, a single misstep by either log leaders, Bidvest Wits, or African champions and defending title holders Mamelodi Sundowns could cost either the championship. But it's not just at the top, it's also in the middle. And at the bottom of the table, that the uncertainties abound. Joining me last night to talk more about this was Thabiso Musia, multiple award-winning sports journalist and presenter. Let's have a listen.
And as you're saying, you know, the heat is on, it's the business end of the season, and you could feel that in Orlando this afternoon. I mean, we've been there throughout the season, but for some reason this afternoon there was a certain spark just around the stadium, even outside. There was a certain buzz inside the stadium, you know, especially when Sundowns scored. I mean, the Sundowns fans were actually screaming louder than the Pirates fans, and you thought that they were the home team in Orlando for a change. So you can tell that their expectations and the Sundowns fans are expecting something, and they want to push their team right up until the end.
And whichever way you look at it, this is going to be an exciting end to the season.
Yes, I think that's how most people would like it, except for the journalists, of course, who will have to be busy on the last day of the season, probably deciding, and the PSL trying to figure out where to take the trophy. But, I mean, that's how you'd like it in every single season. You want it to go down to the wire. You know, there have been some dominant performances over the past seasons where the league has been finished quite early. And this time around, it looks like it will go down to the wire, and there's still a lot to play for, even though there are just 3 games remaining.
But with that said, it really is advantage Wits, isn't it?
Well, they've got the title to lose, basically, because if they win all their matches, then they'll win the title. They're leading by 3 points. There are 3 games left, and they've got matches against, they've got Highlands Park, they've got Free State Stars, and I think they've got Polokwane City coming up also. Yes. So, I mean, if they win all 3 of their matches, then they're home and dry.
Now, with that said, I mean, Vets have been like literally there and thereabouts, topping the log pretty much since the beginning of this particular year. And like you say, it's for them to lose it. Now, is there anything that you see in their makeup and the fact that they've had like 8 straight weeks of just playing that could make them lose it?
Well, I was at the stadium this week after they beat Pirates, also even the game against Sundowns, and Coach Kevin Hunt has been stressing one thing, that is actually running out of players, that they're a bit thin now. They got a lot of injuries that have affected their team. You see Nazir Ali, who's been one of their best players this season, is out. But having said that, you've got the likes of Ree Forsler coming in, and he's been really, really sensational at right back. The young under-19 boy is going to the World Cup now with the under-20s. And the good thing about Bidvest Vets this season is that they have a really, really solid bench. You know, you can see in the beginning of the season, the likes of Xola Mlambo and Thabang Monare were holding that central midfield. After that, now Nchangasi has come back, Ben Mutswari has come back. They're playing their beat. Grenell Scott also, when he joined them mid-season, he also played his part. You know, they've got Mongani Kumalo who can cover for Rebusam Kwanazi, who's not there. Kadet Malajela, they can still afford to keep him on the bench sometimes. He's coming in when it matters now. Ngele is also coming in when it matters. So I think they've always had the squad here to fight up until the end.
Well, that's actually very interesting, because we're just having a quick look-see at what happened with that match against Mamelodi Sundowns. Did Sundowns blow it?
I think it's a tough one. I think that they've gone on a run of 5 straight wins. They didn't concede at all. And then obviously they lost against Vets. They dropped points against Platinum Stars. But I think we have to give credit to the Sundowns team. They've been playing for a very long time now. I think 18 months. I think they've played over 50 matches. Coach Pitso was counting the other day, how many games they've played. I mean, for them to still be fighting at this stage of the season, for the legs to still be there, you must also give credit to their doctors and their medical staff, you know, the guys that are doing some fantastic work there behind the scenes. You don't see a lot of them pulling up with cramps. You don't see a lot of them getting injured, even though they've got so much football that they're playing. So they're still in the groups. They're in the group stages of the Champions League, and they're still fighting here on the league front. So I think regardless of what happens this season with Mamelodi Sundowns, whether they defend their title or whether they finish second or even third, I think a lot of credit must go to that whole team at Sundowns for just fighting up until the end with all the football that they've had to play.
No, I think well said. But I think a lot's been said about this match that they played against Orlando Pirates today, because Vets played against them and won. But the head-to-head between Vets and Sundowns went literally to the wire. It was literally a 1-0, almost was 6 points, because Vets ended up winning that one and then going into the lead in the championship race. What's to be said about how key these results against Orlando Pirates were?
Well, at this stage of the season, 1-0 is all that counts. You just have to get the points, regardless of how you win it, whether it's by good performance or not, you know, that's how you get the points. And it seems like that's how Vets got the points this afternoon. I was at the Orlando Stadium, so I didn't get to see much of that game, except the bit that we were seeing on our screens there at the stadium. But Kevin Hunt did admit after the match that they didn't play well. And for me, I think the true test for Bidvest Vets will probably come against Free State Stars when they go to Global Park, because that has been their bogey team over the seasons, over the years. I think they've only won twice there in the last 13 visits. They've even won in their last 5 visits at Global Park. This is the same team that knocked them out of the Telkom knockout in October last year. So I think for me, that will be the tough match for Bidvest Vets. I expected them to beat Pirates, expected them to get the points against Maritzburg United, but let's see what happens at Free State Stars. And Chiefs could be the party spoilers also last game of the season, so it's far from over.
No, very interesting take that you've given us there. Let's talk a little bit about the top 8 and where Orlando Pirates sits. And with that said, I'd really like to have a look at the log standings of the top 8 in the PSL. And that will actually speak a lot to what we're talking about here. You say Kaizer Chiefs could come in and spoil the party. They still do have a mathematical chance of getting in there with it. And but having said that, what do you make of what we're looking at here in the top 8?
Well, what we make, I think that Chiefs won't win a trophy again for the second time this season, because for the second time in a row, rather, under Steve Compella's second season, because if you look at the points table, they have no chance now of winning the title. Technically, there are 3 teams still in it: Cape Town City, Sundowns, and Bidvest Vets. We've already spoken about that. But let's give credit, though, to the teams lying in 6th and 7th position there. Polokwane City under Luke Amel, you know, it's the first time that they've been this high in the league. I mean, they were as high as 4th at some point this season, and I think they've really, really played well, played good football, and still managed to keep a top 8 position. Also, Maritzburg United there, having lost Roger Desar, but Fadlu Davids has come come in. He's been there for a while, and I think it's not rocket science that he should get the job next season. I don't think Maritzburg United should look beyond Fadlu Davids, especially with the work that is done recently. And how about Cape Town, who were dead and buried at some stage? They were fighting relegation. They made the coaching change. Stanley Menzo came in, struggled a little bit, but it looks like now he's got them up where they belong, where they should be, and they've promised the coach that they're going to win their last couple of matches. They want to cement their place in the top 8. But obviously there is one team missing.
Jonavret and his team, Orlando Pirates, were sitting in 10th position. If you look at the bottom half of the log, a lot of people were hoping that Jonavret would actually maybe at least secure a top 8 position. Yes, there's still some games to play, but it looks very tight now for Pirates.
I think it was a lot to ask for a new man. It was a tough task for him. He's never been in South African football, African football before. For him to join a team mid-season, a team that was already struggling, a team that had come off 2-6, conceding 6 goals, 6-1 and 6-0, you know. Yeah. It was always going to be tough for Shell Jonavret. But having said that, though, you would have thought that by now you would have gotten an idea of what he's trying to do with this team. You know, he did say he's going to work on the defense and then work on the team going forward. But really, you're still not able to see what he's doing at the moment. And I think Pirates relied a lot on Tendai Ndoro in the first half of the season. He's got a lot of goals for that team. And you actually forgot that the other guys were not coming to the party. And now that he's not scoring those goals, Tendai Ndoro, the goals are very hard to come by. So it's been a difficult season for Orlando Pirates, and the coaching changes definitely did not help.
No, I can imagine not. Now, before I let you go, Tabi, so we cannot not talk about how Baroka FC and Highlands Park have struggled in their first season, well, Highlands Park and Baroka in the first season in elite football. It seems like they've actually propped up this log since just before the Christmas break, and that's where they still sit.
It's always a tough one for the teams that are coming up for the NFD. It's also a tough one for the team that has to go play in the playoffs, because after those playoffs, you don't have much time to basically prepare for the season ahead. You must hit the ground running, you know. Highlands Park also have themselves to blame. They fired Alan Fries after just 5 games in charge, which really did not make sense. They brought in Gordon Iggesint. He brought his own players, also couldn't do anything with the team. And good luck to Les Grobler now in the last 3 games of the season, but it's going to be a tough task for them. I think by the time they play Sundowns in the last game of the season, they'll probably be gone. Baroka also, too many coaching changes in one season, a lot of drama. A lot was said also in the beginning of the season, and they should have learned from Chippa when he once came up from the NFD and he said he's going to win the league. It never, unfortunately, happens like that. But they still have a great chance of getting out of it. If you look at where Chippa United is at the moment, if you look at where Free State Stars is at the moment, and Baroka have the advantage of having played 1 game less than the 2 sides above them, you know, but they still have Sundowns coming up, so that'll be a tough one for them. So I guess even at the bottom, that's how you would like it. It's going to also go down to the wire here. Highlands Park, it's really going to be tough for them, especially now with Les Grobler being in charge. But there is a chance of making the playoffs and trying to survive in those playoffs, regardless of how we feel about that system. But there's always a chance, I guess, in the Absa Premiership for even the team that finishes number 15 and didn't do well the whole season.
Well, there you have the comprehensive analysis of what's going on in the PSL as we get to the final, the last stretch of this year's competition by Thabiso Mosia, Power FM sports presenter and journalist. Now, Arsenal are back in the hunt to qualify for Champions League spot after Arsene Wenger finally got the better of Jose Mourinho in a 2-0 win over Manchester United. This while Liverpool were held to a 0-0 draw by Southampton. Wenger had failed to win any of his previous 14 competitive clashes against Mourinho, dating back to 2004, with his only victory of his old rival coming in the 2015 Community Shield. The Gunners' boss brought an end to that frustrating streak at just the right time, as goals from Granit Xhaka and Danny Welbeck improved Arsenal's chances of salvaging a troubled season by finishing in the top 4. Arsenal are now placed 6th and are now 6 points behind 4th place Manchester City with 4 games to play, while Pep Guardiola's side are left with only 3 matches. Now, a quick one for you is Eliud Kipchoge ran the quickest recorded marathon on Saturday, 6th of May, crossing the line of the Monza Formula 1 track in 2 hours and 25 seconds, but he missed out on a bold attempt to break the 2-hour barrier. The 32-year-old's time smashed the official mark of 2 hours, 2 minutes and 57 seconds set by fellow Kenyan Dennis Kimet in Berlin in 2014, but will not enter the record books. This largely due to a specialized pacemaking system. Now, moving on to other sporting news as well, we have a look at what happened at the Diamond League as Caster Semenya won her race, as well as Akani Simbine won his.
Which included 16 reigning Olympic and world champions. In one of the most anticipated events on the first day of the Doha League, Olympic gold medalist Caster Semenya renewed her rivalry with Unisam of Kenya, who was out to defend her Doha title. The event, which included the top 3 finishers from the last year's Rio Olympic Games, also featured the 1500 meters world record holder Kenzaba Dibaba. Despite long-distance runners such as Dibaba looking to set the pace early on, the South African looked comfortable in the first part of the race. With the 200 meters to go, Semenya made a move assuming the lead for the first time in the race, closely followed by Margaret Nyambui of Kenya. However, there was no stopping Semenya as she cruised to victory in the time of 1 minute 56.61 seconds. Not to be outdone, South Africa's 100-meter record holder Akani Simbini featured in the men's 100-meter event. The South African didn't disappoint, picking up where he left off in this year's South African Athletic Senior Championships, clocking another sub-10 to claim the first spot.
It's now come up as 9.99 in front of me, and indeed been confirmed, and that's into a headwind. Well, I said how well he's been going. What a season this young man's had. That's his 4th sub-10 second clocking of 2017.
In another event which featured local athletes, LJ Fanzele finished 3rd in the men's 400 meters hurdle, which was won by Qatar's very own Abderraham Samba in a time of 48.44 seconds. While Cornel Fredericks, who also competed in the same event, could only manage a 5th place finish. Joseph Mohali, SABC News.
Now time for the IPL, where despite scoring his 2nd century in the 2017 Indian Premier League, South African batsman Hashim Amla found himself on the losing side. The Kings 11 Punjab's hopes of knockout cricket in this year's IPL suffered a setback, this following their 6-wicket loss at the hands of the Gujarat Lions.
Times it perfectly, his run.
Now the Lions won the toss and elected to field first, which was rewarded with a wicket with just the 5th ball of the match. Thereafter, Amla partnered up with Shaun Marsh, who scored 58. Amla's 104 stand featured 8 fours and 5 sixes. The target of 190 was reached with 2 balls remaining. This after the Gujarat team's top order all supported opener Dwayne Smith, who scored a 39-ball 74. Kings 11, their playoff chances were dented with their 6th loss in 11 matches. Staying 5th in the table, the gap between them and 4th place Sunrisers Hyderabad remain on 3 points.
Nobody out there. It'll sail away. 1 bounce, 2 bounces, and gone for 4. And Gujarat Lions.
Now to golf, where Brian Harmon made a 30-foot birdie putt in the final hole to win the Wells Fargo Championship and denied Dustin Johnson the chance at a 4th straight victory. Johnson, the world #1 player, has just returned from a freak back injury that kept him out of the Masters. His countryman Harmon is hoping to be a regular contender on the tour after the dramatic finish gave him his 2nd win.
The diminutive left-hander rolled in a birdie at the final hole to win the Wells Fargo Championship. After going so long on his 2nd shot that he needed relief from behind a corporate tent, Harmon hit a heavy chip that barely got onto the green. From just under 30 feet away, the putt dropped into the center of the cup and set off a wild celebration. He carded a 68 to finish at 10 under par 278 for his 2nd PGA Tour victory, 1 stroke ahead of fellow Americans Johnson and Pat Perez.
I blacked out. I don't know what happened. I can't wait to watch it. I mean, I have no idea what happened. I don't know what I did. It's very hard to stay patient because you know what it feels like to win. You know what it takes. You feel like you're capable of it, but it just doesn't happen. And then it doesn't happen again, and it doesn't happen again, and then that's where the doubt starts to creep in. Like, well, mate, you know. So this one feels very good.
Spaniard John Ram finished 2 strokes behind, while overnight leader Patrick Reed struggled with his drive and faded to end 5 strokes behind. World #1 Johnson, playing for the first time since falling downstairs on the eve of the Masters a month ago, was seeking to become the 5th player in the PGA Tour history to win at least 4 consecutive starts.
Well, I mean, they had the jacket 40 long, so I think they already had it set up for Dustin. No, he's he's a tough cookie, man. You know, he shot 3 or 4 over in the second round, and or was it and then you know the weekend he shoots what 400, 500, 500, 600, something like that. So he's tough.
Harman expected his 2014 John Deere Classic victory to open the floodgates, but instead spun his wheels until recently. He is hoping this time will be different. Mduduzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
In the next hour, we'll bring you news of how Maria Sharapova is making her comeback, as well as a little bit on what's happened over the Super Rugby over this weekend. That's where we leave it for now. We'll be back in the next hour with more news, more analysis. You are watching Newsroom. Until then, listen.
A presumed U.S. drone strike in the south of the country has killed 3 al-Qaeda suspects.
Death toll in Yemen's 18-month-old civil war now stands at about 10,000.
People get killed or die and are actually buried before they're recorded. And we don't have a way of recording that, but we know the numbers are much higher.
Water restrictions are to be imposed on villages in and around the Nkomazi municipality.
Pumps can't pump the water because there's no water in a river. And if the water is coming back, then it's full of mud.
Those who can pray and those who can do any miracle to make sure that we've got enough rain, give it a try.
Failure to implement the water restriction is going to make the system not workable. For the domestic use, everyone should not exceed 25 kiloliters per day.
What is the penalty and how much have you raked in thus far as a municipality?
For domestic users, if they exceed 25 kiloliters, then they're going to be charged a penalty on their monthly bill. And so far already we've collected 1.7 million.
The 200 million rand state-of-the-art school in Magaliesburg had been vandalized by drug addicts. How bad is it?
It's very bad. Into the hostel residents, it was even worse because there the doors, the wardrobes, the beds, the ceiling were broken down. Showers were ripped off and it couldn't be used by students who are actually using that particular boarding facility.
According to the World Health Organization, the number of people who are obese doubled between 1980 and 2008. Furthermore, 35% of adults over the age of 20 are obese. More than 2 in 3 adults are considered to be overweight or obese. More than 1 in 3 adults are considered to be obese. More than 1 in 20 adults are considered to have extreme obesity. Furthermore, 35% of adults over the age of 20 are obese. In 2010, overweight and obesity were estimated to cause 3.4 million deaths, Lancet reports in 2013. South Africa has the highest overweight and obesity rate in sub-Saharan Africa, with up to 70% of women and a third of men being classified as overweight or obese. A staggering 40% of women in our country are obese, according to the Heart and Stroke Foundation. The bulk of our population used to be physically active, particularly in 1970 to 1999, and ate a diet high in fiber and indigenous vegetables, low in animal protein and refined carbs. However, due to increased urbanization, people are adopting a more westernized diet, high in unhealthy fats, sugar, and salt. Greater disposable income and a faster-paced lifestyle have resulted in people consuming more fast foods and convenient foods, according to the European Association for the Study of Obesity. The Department of Health realizes the seriousness of the obesity crisis and has included this in their National Non-Communicable Diseases Strategic Goals to assist with the obesity problem and increase physical activity by 10% by 2020, reduce the consumption of alcohol by 20% by 2020, reduce the percentage of people who are obese and overweight by 10% by 2020. Obesity has a significant impact on health and well-being. It may also burden a person's workplace abilities. Workers who are obese may need longer rest breaks to return to their initial state of muscle function. 2.6 million people die each year as a result of being overweight or obese, according to the World Health Organization.
This situation demands urgent strategic action encompassing a wide range of sectors, including those responsible for food and beverage production, manufacturing, marketing, and retail.
Obesity has major implications for the healthcare systems in South Africa as they are faced with increasing demands of care for health conditions related to obesity, overweight such as diabetes mellitus, osteoarthritis, cancers, and major cardiovascular diseases. There is no single cause of all overweight and obesity. There is no single approach to treating or preventing it. Treatments may include a mix of behavioral diet, exercise, and sometimes weight loss drugs. In some cases of extreme obesity, weight loss surgery may be an option.
A top 5 rated horse racing event in the world, fashion is a highlight for those in attendance. All decked out in blue and white, the Lomorian's Queen Plate is the premier event that kicked off everyone's social calendar.
That it was all part of my master plan to cast John Legend, but deprive him of his normal instrument and give that one to Ryan.
The House of Truth is not just a name. It is a religion. It is a lifestyle. It is a conviction that drives us.
What really excites me is how people have kept it very simple and also played with the theme, and how each person has interpreted it in their own way.
To stay updated with all the current entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
It's 1100 hours Central Africa time here on the Newsroom, Monday, the 8th of May. Jumbo Africa. I'm Elvis Preston.
And I'm Kendall Makamat.
And we'll be with you until 12 o'clock. Now, today we focus on the violence that broke out in Vuwani after the President, Jacob Zuma, failed to address the residents in the troubled Limpopo area there, Kendall.
Absolutely, and that's why we think that the question to ask you today is, what could the solution be to the Vuwani crisis?
Well, as you see, there's also protests in Eldorado Park. We'll go there shortly to find out what's happening there. But we're conducting a poll. In fact, but before we get to the poll, there's also a couple of people tweeting us on that question, on some of the solutions for Vuwani. Let's see if we can get them up. We can. There we go. But that's the poll. But anyway, let's do the poll. Do you know what the Pan-African Parliament does? That is what we're asking you today. And you heard some of the comments from our esteemed guests this morning. But Barry Martin says, Kendall.
He says that people of Vuwani must act like responsible people because they're destroying their own future and demolishing the township.
Well, that's on the question of what is the solution in Vuwani. It can only be solved by the principle of democracy. Government of the people, by the people, not by politicians for their selfish interests, says Morena.
Selving Weber says it's really disturbing how our people and the government go about resolving serious issues.
And this one from Nondomiso says, give them what they want. Give the people what they want, says Domiso.
And then Cyril Chiloa says the only solution in this Vuwani issue is to give the people what they want.
Yes. Well, consensus there that people should get what they want. So what do you think? So let's put up the poll again, just to check again on what the poll says, because we're conducting that poll on the Pan-African Parliament's fourth ordinary session that will commence today. The PAP's purpose is to ensure the full participation of Africans in the development and the economic integration of the continent. So there's the question, Kendall.
Absolutely. Very interesting enough. We've had a pickup in the votes. We've got 185 votes that have come in. And the question that we're asking is, do you know what the Pan-African Parliament does?
Almost 90% are saying, no, we don't. And that's very concerning for people on the African continent. Only 11% are saying, yes, they know. And that's probably some of the delegates in Midrand today at the PAP.
We got tweets coming. Lechasa Batlamullo says, 2017, the Pan-African Parliament 2017, I don't know, but I hope I will learn from you.
Says Lechasa. Temba, I hope you learned so far, because we had a very interesting guest. Temba says, I don't see how the PAP would solve dealing with dictators. It's no child's play, he says.
Freddie Whitehorn says, nothing.
Yeah. And that is the concern, because 90% of you are saying, no, we don't know. Shlengiwe says, no, I don't know much about Date PAP 2017. Well, hopefully you learned a little bit more today in terms of their role and how they play. It's an advisory role, really, in giving advice to the African Union, and that's what they do. Right, these are some of your comments. Please keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. But right now, time to take a look at your headlines. Top story: a service delivery protest in Eldorado Park, south of Johannesburg, has turned violent, leading to road closures around the area. President Jacob Zuma says he will return to Vuwani and Limpopo to address communities about the municipal demarcation dispute there. And a 39-year-old former investment banker has become France's youngest leader since Napoleon, with a promise to transcend the outdated left-right divisions. Those are all your headlines. Before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Elvis, thank you very much. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you on this very busy Monday morning from the sporting world.
He's done that with a lot of players.
The ABSA Premiership title race has reached fever pitch as Bidvest Wits edged Maritzburg United by a single goal to nil, and Mamelodi Sundowns piled the misery on Orlando Pirates with a 2-0 victory at Orlando Stadium.
Tony for holding. Walks in for
Arsenal mount a late challenge for a top four finish with a 2-0 victory over Manchester United as Arsene Wenger beats a Jose Mourinho team for the first time ever. In the sub-2-hour marathon attempt over the weekend, Kenyan Eliud Kipchoge overshoots the 2-hour mark by a mere 25 seconds. It breaks a massive psychological barrier in the process.
I am a happy man to run a marathon in 2 hours. So I think that the world now is just 25 seconds away.
Just 25 seconds away is that sub-2-hour marathon record. For now, I'll be handing over to Elvis with more a little later on.
Thank you, Kendall. Now, we've been showing you pictures this whole morning of the violence in Eldorado Park. Now, the situation remained tense in Eldorado Park, south of Johannesburg, following protest action. Residents are demanding to be allocated houses. Several highways have been affected and traffic is being rerouted to alternative routes. Residents have used rubble and burning tires to barricade the roads. Service delivery protest there, as you know, has turned violent, and of course the closures around the area. Motorists are advised to avoid the N12 and the Golden Highway roads. Now, SABC's Herbert Mamela talked to some of the residents about their grievances. Let's see if we can have latest. Let's now go to our SABC reporter, Lopang Alamo. Lopang, a very good morning to you and welcome. Lopang, can you hear me?
Well, we are indeed here in Eldorado Park, where there's been service delivery protests from 4 a.m. this morning. As you can see, the crowd, is running away. They're being dispersed by police using rubber bullets. And what's happening is every time the police think they've got the crowd under control, they regroup and then move closer towards the police. And as you can see, there's a high police contingency, and police are doing their best to try and, as you can see, they're approaching now. They're running away from the police and the rubber bullets. That's because they're throwing stones at the police. As you can see, there's a helicopter trying to disperse the crowd. But every time the police try to disperse the crowd, they go on to regroup. We'll move a little bit closer to give you a more clearer picture as to exactly what is happening. As you can see, the crowd eventually took signs down. They've been looting as well, going to other people's yards to try and hide. I'll give you a more clearer picture. We're going to turn around and show you that on the other side, there's another crowd also trying to regroup. As you can see, they're throwing stones at the police. The police have been working very hard trying to disperse them. But every time they think they have the crowd under control, they regroup, gather again, and start firing shots. Give you another clear picture of the Golden Highway. The entire Golden Highway, just on the road between Freedom Park and Eldorado Park, has been closed off. So traffic has been a hassle from early this morning. As you can see, the crowd running away from the police as they fire rubber bullets and tear gas to try and disperse them. I can confirm that 4 arrests have been made. As we saw earlier, police arresting 4 of the protesters. There's a high police contingency, but the crowd keeps on regrouping. We'll show you another side of the whole thing. As you can see, like I said earlier, they go on to regroup again. They come towards the police. And then again, the crowd behind us regroups as the police are paying attention to the other group. So there's a really large crowd here, and police are trying by all means to try and disperse the crowd, but it doesn't seem to be working. They've been burning tires, as you can see, police officers getting rid of those tires. Well, we will definitely keep you updated on any more developments, but for now, it is back to you in studio.
Well, that's our reporter there, Lopang, on the issues there. Now, let's go back to our SABC reporter, Herbert Mamela, who talked to some of the residents in the area.
As the council of PAC from Ward 17, we have yesterday a public meeting at the community hall for service delivering and for our people who have come from outside and get attendance and get jobs here. We feel, the residents have feel it is unfair that the youth of Eldorado Park don't get jobs, and they have always a problem and say the youth are in drugs. Maar Eldorado Park is the place where they have voted for the DA, and the DA council has undermined the residents of Eldorado Park. And yesterday on 3 o'clock we was have a public meeting where the DA council have never came to our public meeting at the community hall. When the DA council came to the public meeting in Extension 5, this protest was not supposed to happen today. But since '94, no development in Eldorado Park.
We are tired. We live in Freedom Park. We are people from Freedom Park. We are activists. We are tired. We need land.
When we want service delivery in Freedom Park, that space, they tell us there's no space there. We want space there. We want space, we want houses there. We need houses, we need electricity.
Well, those some of the residents from Freedom Park that is protesting for land, and of course it's veering onto Eldorado Park, and there you can see the contestations over land. These are the issues that we are confronted with. Now, 2 Northwest men accused of killing a 16-year-old schoolboy have been granted bail of 5,000 rand bail each by the Colini Magistrates Court this morning. Philip Skitter and Peter Dorvaart were arrested 3 weeks ago after allegedly throwing out Mahlomola Moshoyu from a moving vehicle. However, the accused, through their legal team, have disputed this, saying that the child jumped off the van as he was taken to a local police station for allegedly stealing sunflowers at the men's farm. For the latest now, we go live to Olobogeng Kochsilentwe, who is going to chat to us about the situation there. Can you tell us what is the latest there in Colini, Lebogang, in the case that has drawn so much attention to the people of Colini?
Well, tensions are running high here at the Colini Magistrates Court, Elvis. This is after Magistrate Ramaphosa granted the 2 men accused in the murder of Mahlomola Moshoyu bail at 5,000 rand each. I'm now standing by with the family representative, Mr. Stani Mnyakama, who is going to tell us the feeling of the family really, because they came here very hopeful that bail will not be granted to both Peter Dorvaart as well as Philip Skitter. Good morning, Mr. Mnyakama. You came here hopeful. What is your reaction now to what has proceeded in court today?
Yeah, the situation here, actually, what the proceeding that happened and the conclusion that was given for these 2 white men to go on bail, it's very pathetic. It's painful to the family. We can't take this. It's very painful. Number one, you know, to me, it says, as a family, it says the poorest of the poor will always suffer. The have of this world will always own everything, even the justice system. What one thinks is really from the police, the detectives, the prosecutor, and the magistrate who are handling this case. We don't know whether have they applied their mind well as family. We are saying, number one, our boy is 6 feet down the ground. They are talking of people who need, number one, to go back to work. They must be catered. They're in a comfort zone. Nothing is said about the one who's 6 feet. So, yeah.
Now, do you have any hope in the justice system of the country? Because the trial is yet to take place. Magistrate Foso made it clear that this is not a prejudgment of the 2 accused.
The justice system, one would say, would really like, as a family, because this to me it says, we need to have a strong advocate for the family, number one. Because here it's a matter of people who have studied law, knows the law. Because I think whomever will get, they need to sue from number one, the farm owner, until the last drop. It also needs very good investigators. Very good investigators who can go down and dig this thing until the truth is out. because this thing is going to cause a chaotic situation in Colini. The government should stop papering over the cracks. We must deal with reality. Here we are talking of an innocent boy who was only eating a sunflower, not even a cob, few grains of sunflower. He's dead for that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mnyakama. Elvis, I'm now going to call on to set the mayor of the Rizobotla local municipality, Mr. Daniel Buthelezi. Mayor, government paving over the cracks, as the family said. Your comment?
Yeah, the situation is very unfortunate because a lot of people were expecting that the perpetrators to this crime will be refused bail. But as government, what can we say? We respect the rule of law. We respect our courts, and but it is just unfortunate situation, as it has been indicated, that there is a child who has lost his life, and then there are parents who are in grief at the moment, having lost their beloved one. And also as government, we say it is an unfortunate situation. But if the court has ruled otherwise, what can we say? We just hope that at the end, justice will be done for these perpetrators of this child's death. That is what we are wishing for, that at least at the end of the day, justice must be realized. That's what we say. We also want to say to to the members of public that what is important at the moment, we are requesting peace and harmony in our area. Let there be unity. Let people rally behind the family and ensure that at the end, as government, what we want to be achieved it must be realized.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Elvis, the Mayor calling for calm and peace, but without wanting to preempt, that seems very unlikely because, as you can see behind me, the community of Scotland Informal Settlement, where Mahlomola Mosweu resided, are very angry. They promised us, they told us yesterday that should bail be granted for the two accused, Colini will go up in flames. But there is quite a lot of police present here today monitoring the situation. As for now, the community is just singing. They're holding pictures of Mahlomola. They're holding placards reading, "Enough is enough." We will be right here observing the situation, Elvis, and updating the nation as the day continues. It's back to you in studio.
Thank you, Leboheng Kosilentswe, coming to us live there. So we'll keep you updated on that story, and she'll bring you some more a little bit later. Let's move on now to other stories. The alleged assassination plotter, Elvis Ramosebudi, has been released on 3,000 rand bail. The 33-year-old appeared briefly in the Johannesburg Magistrates Court. Now, he is accused of plotting to kill 19 individuals, among them state capture beneficiaries and cabinet members. Ramosebudi is charged with inciting to commit murder. The State Security Minister, David Mahlobo, the Free State Premier, Ace Magashule, and Mineral Resources Minister Mosebenzi Vuwani were the first three people that Elvis Ramosebudi allegedly wanted to assassinate, according to revelations that were made in the court on Friday. It was also alleged that he planned to assassinate Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe. The alleged assassination plans were in documents that police found in Ramosebudi's home in Shoshanguve near Pretoria. Let's move on now. President Jacob Zuma says he will return to Vuwani in Limpopo to address communities about the municipal demarcation dispute. The president was expected to address the Vuwani residents yesterday after a meeting with the pro-Mercado task team, traditional leaders, churches and other stakeholders. However, when the president failed to arrive, residents went on a rampage.
They came in numbers to listen to the president's address. After 6 hours of waiting, it was a no-show. The delegation, led by ministers Fikile Mbalula, Des van Rooyen and David Mahlobo, came instead. But residents did not take kind to the president's absence. All speakers were heckled and prevented from speaking. King Tony Ramabulana also tried to calm them, but all they wanted was the address by the president.
We are very angry because of the decision the president and his security team took. We are not violent people. We are peaceful, and we are surprised that he left without addressing us. Now we do not know where we stand.
What happened here today for others might be painful, but for us, we are happy because at least there's now an indication that the Vemba district will be providing services for the time being.
Local leaders were also disappointed by Zuma's decision to pull out.
They wanted to listen to the president. They were called here by the president and the king. The king of the Bavenda tribe was here, but the president was not here. That situation agitated everything.
Agitated residents went on the rampage, pelting vehicles with stones. 3 SABC vehicles were not spared.
And that is why we're asking you that question today on your screen right now. What could be the solution to the problems in Vuwani and the crisis that we have there? Let's take a look at what you have to say on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. The first one comes from Sipo, says, Vuwani residents yesterday were blaming the president and his admin today. They now want him. They are uncontrollable, says Mr. Mtembu there. This one from Barry Martin says, the people of Vuwani must act like responsible people because you are destroying your own future of demolishing your township. This one from Morena says, it can only be solved by the principle of democracy, government of the people, by the people, not by politicians for their selfish interest. And Selby says, it's really disturbing how people and the government go about resolving serious issues. These are some of your comments. Keep them coming on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. Now, the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, has apologized for the way in which the Marikana massacre unfolded 5 years ago, but he denied any involvement in the killing of the 34 Lonmin mine workers. The Deputy President was addressing students and academics at Rhodes University.
I participated in trying to stop further deaths from happening. 10 workers had been killed. And my intervention was to say, there is a disaster looming. More workers are being killed and are going to be killed. My role was to try and stop further deaths from happening. Some of the workers had been hacked to death. And yes, I may well have used unfortunate language in the messages that I sent out, and for which I have apologized, and for which I do apologize that I did not use appropriate language. But I never had the intention to have 34 other mine workers killed.
Later at nearby Joza Township, an address to the ANC Cadres Forum, stressing the importance of building branches.
There must be branches that operate well and branches that are well connected to our people. There must also be branches, comrades, which have not been captured.
Ramaphosa vowed that the leadership would fix the cracks within the organization. Jadely Paulser, SABC News, Grapetown.
Gauteng Education Department officials will today visit Parktown High School for Boys in Johannesburg after a teacher was arrested for allegedly sexual abuse. Gauteng Education MEC Panyal Silasufi says that he's shocked by the allegations that more than 20 pupils may have been abused by the water polo coach. The man was arrested after surveillance footage allegedly caught him fondling a 15-year-old boy. The 22-year-old teacher faces charges of sexual grooming and sexual assault. Moving to stories on the continent now, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has welcomed the 82 Chibok girls who have been freed in a prisoner swap by the militant Boko Haram group in Abuja. The girls were among a group of 270 schoolgirls kidnapped 3 years ago by the militant group.
The girls and their parents were driven away in a military convoy after arriving in Abuja airport. Nigeria thanked Switzerland and the International Committee of the Red Cross for helping to secure their release after lengthy negotiations.
Welcome our girls, welcome our sisters. We're happy to have you back. We're very glad that you are back. And every Nigerian today must be forgetting every other hardship is suffering because it is a very joyous moment. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
The girls were abducted by Boko Haram from a secondary school in the northeastern town of Chibok in 2014. Their kidnapping sparked global outcry and the campaign Bring Back Our Girls, supported by then US First Lady Michelle Obama and a list of celebrities.
It's a welcome development. It gladdens our hearts, and we know that even the parents of the girls are happy because it means gradually closure. We are attaining closure, and of course all 1 million Nigerians are happy.
In October last year, 21 girls were released in a deal, also brokered by Switzerland and the International Red Cross, while a handful have escaped or been rescued. The Nigerian government now hopes to secure the release of the 115 girls who are still believed to be in captivity.
The United Nations Children's Fund ambassador and actress Priyanka Chopra has called on the world to support the Chibok girls who were released by Boko Haram after their abduction in 2014. The Bollywood and Hollywood star visited Zimbabwe and South Africa and has appealed for the Chibok girls not to be ostracized as they return to their families.
छोटी-मोटी चोटें आई हैं आपको। काश आपके पति की किस्मत भी आप जैसी हो।
She's a mega star of the silver screen, but it is her work with children that brought her to the continent. News of the release of some of the kidnapped Chibok girls are sinking in. Chopra made a passionate plea to the world to help the girls reintegrate into society and allow them to follow their dreams.
For those girls, they're examples of bravery around the world, and they need to be, confidence needs to be built into them so that they can stand on their own feet all over again and not feel blamed or responsible, because that is another thing that society does to our own girls. It was your fault. You must have called for it. You must have asked for it. And those stigmas, and I mean, we as people can talk about it, but when you actually go into the grassroots, when you go into those homes, where you go into communities, that's what happens to girls. They get stigmatized, and then they get isolated, and then they don't believe that their lives are worth living. And we need to remind those communities that that cannot happen.
Turning to South Africa and Zimbabwe, Chopra had this to say about her visit.
We need to care more about the children of the world, because it is on us. It is not on their parents who don't have the money to send them to school, to give them food, who may not be alive, children who are deprived from attention, who get into trouble because of neglect. It is on us as a society who have so much to be able to reach out to these children and make sure that they get a lot more than they are getting, that they get what they deserve.
She also called for increased support for child victims of sexual violence. Sophie Mukwena, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Emmanuel Macron has won the French presidential election, defeating Marine Le Pen by a wide margin. Macron received about 65% of the vote in the final presidential runoff against Le Pen's 35%.
Le Pen says she has congratulated Macron. His victory has smashed the dominance of France's mainstream parties and will bring huge relief to European Union allies who feared another populist upheaval to follow Britain's vote to quit the EU and Donald Trump's election as US president. The 39-year-old former investment banker will become France's youngest leader since Napoleon, with a promise to transcend outdated left-right divisions. The results come after a massive hacking attack on Mr. Macron's campaign database over the weekend, which saw hundreds of thousands of private emails and official documents dumped online. Voter turnout was recorded at 65.3% as of 5 p.m. Macron's victory came at the tail end of a dramatic campaigning period that has seen a series of scandals, demonstrations, and vicious rhetoric shake news and markets.
Now, in his first speech as the President of France, Emmanuel Macron has promised to unite a torn France and to renew the ties between Europe and its citizens.
Taken only 3 years for Emmanuel Macron to rise from being an unknown government advisor to be elected France's youngest head of state since Napoleon.
After a long democratic battle, you've chosen to give me your trust, and I want to say how grateful I am. It's a great honor and a great responsibility, as nothing was written in stone. I want to thank you.
He added he would defend the vital interests of France and Europe and carry out the fight against terrorism in France and abroad as long as it would be needed.
I will defend Europe, the common destiny that the people of our continent have given to each other. It is our civilization that is at stake, our way of living, our freedom, the way we preserve our common values, initiatives and hopes. I will work to recreate the link between Europe and its people, between Europe and its citizens.
His election represents a long-awaited generational change in French politics, where the same faces have dominated for years.
While the far-right leader Marine Le Pen conceded defeat.
With this historic and massive result, French people chose a new president of the Republic and voted for continuity. With this historic and massive result, French people designated the Patriotic and Republican Alliance as the first opposition force to the program of the new president. The first round confirmed a major breakdown of France's political life, with the elimination of old parties. This second round organizes a wide political redraw between the patriots and the globalists. I call on all patriots to join us to take part in the decisive political fight. More than ever in the forthcoming months, France will need you. Long live the Republic, long live France.
Vive la République, vive la France.
Lawmakers from across the continent gather for the Pan-African Parliament's fourth ordinary session in Midrand here in Gauteng, currently underway. Now, the Pan-African Parliament is set to unveil ambitious plans to root out terrorism on the continent.
The battle to become Africa's highest lawmaking authority, a vision which defines and drives the Pan-African Parliament agenda. Legislatures from across Africa are tasked with discussing and planning for Africa's development. Economic development and the war on terror are set to dominate discussions. Africa's numerous decades-long armed conflicts and the recent terror attacks in Europe will be high on the agenda too. Africa's role in the war on terror is certainly expected to dominate proceedings here at the Pan-African Parliament, but officials here say that Africa's developmental agenda will also not be left behind. Other key topics include plans to fast-track social and economic development. Africa also needs to plan for its growing youth population. Protecting the environment from poaching, pollution, and climate change will be debated, as will reversing the illicit trade in raw materials.
This institution doesn't have the legislative powers, and the ultimate objective is to make sure that one day it becomes a legislative parliament of the continent of Africa.
Under Roger Ndong's presidency, the PAP has worked tirelessly to polish its image. In 2017, the PAP held its maiden sitting in Egypt. Despite a multi-million-dollar investment from the European Union, cost-cutting is part of the turnaround. Changes praised by African leaders. But the PAP is a long way from its legislative dream. From Africa's 54 nations, only 5 countries have ratified the lawmaking protocols so far. Dumala Mutlaudi, SABC News, Midrand.
And as part of our educational aspect today, we're asking you today, on the poll, do you know what the Pan-African Parliament is all about? What they do? Hashtag PAP 2017. So far, we have 185 votes in, 21 hours left to vote. Almost 90% of you are saying on the African continent that you do not know what the Pan-African Parliament does. 11% are saying yes, and as I indicated earlier, that 11% could constitute perhaps some of the delegates at the Pan-African Parliament today. So we need to just let you know a little bit more and create awareness around the PAP and its role in Africa. As you know, it's an advisory capacity right now to the African Union. And of course, they want to expand that to provide legislative powers. We talked about the toothless bulldog, but to provide them with some teeth on the African continent. We'll take a break. We'll be right back after that.
Government Employees Pension Fund is set to acquire a 5% stake in Kenya's power producer KenGen.
The company says the sale of the 5% stake could have material effect on its shares trading on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Last year, the company raised $264 million through a rights issue aimed at cutting its debt.
An alarm is growing in South Africa as the livelihood of millions of people who receive 17 million social grants still hangs in the balance. Right now, Net1's Cash Paymaster Services administers the payment of grants, but its contract with SASSA comes to an end in April. Neither the minister nor the SASSA CEO were present.
There may be associated problem with the arteries of the heart in patients with hypertensive heart disease, and in some instances it's just pure the muscle disease problem. The statistics show us that half the population of individuals with high blood pressure are not even aware that they've got high blood pressure.
There's the amount of salt we eat, because there's a big influence on our blood pressure levels. So using less salt when you're cooking, less salty spices when you're cooking, not adding salt at the table, but rather using other spices and herbs to flavor your food. And then of course how much sugar you eat is also very important.
If you start becoming uncomfortable, or where you feel that your effort tolerance is becoming less, you can't lie flat, you run short of breath, you start swelling in the legs and so on, it's high time that one should consult a doctor.
Join Health Talk every Saturday for all your health news.
Welcome back. My name is Kendall Makamat, and it's time to bring you our sports stories for this Monday morning. We start off with looking at the PSL, where log leaders Bidvest Wits maintain their 3-point lead at the top of the Absolute Premiership. This after a slender 1-0 win over Maritzburg United. But hot on their heels are defending champions Mamelodi Sundowns, who got a crucial 2-0 win over Orlando Pirates in Soweto. Students are sitting on 57 points, while Sundowns are on 54, just 3 points adrift, with only 3 games remaining.
Still fresh in the minds of many soccer followers in South Africa was the 6-0 drubbing Orlando Pirates suffered at the hands of Mamelodi Sundowns in Pretoria 3 months ago. Sundowns were the better side in the opening stages and were rewarded in the 25th minute with a goal from Kama Billiard.
And yes, it's home. Kama Billiard has goal number 7 in the league this season.
Pirates fought back immediately, but were denied by keeper Dennis Onyango. The home side threw everything forward, but Onyango denied them once again on the stroke of half-time.
Dennis Onyango at full stretch denies Orlando Pirates.
Ivorian Yannick Zagri stretched the visitors' lead early in the second half.
Mamelodi Sundowns in front. A poor piece of Pirates defending has been punished.
However, Bucks did not do enough to claw their way back into the match. Instead, the Brazilians were the more attack-minded side, with Billiard denied by the crossbar late in the match. Meanwhile, Bidvest Wits, who have proved to be a hard nut to crack when playing at home, came up against a revived Maritzburg United side playing under caretaker coach Fadlu Davids. Kedlenkis wasted the golden opportunity to put the visitors ahead earlier on. Mohakulu Dingele was also wasteful in front of goal midway through the first half. There was still no goal at half-time. Phumlani Ntshangase broke the deadlock 6 minutes into the second half, putting the lock leaders ahead. Maritzburg tried hard to draw level, but it was not to be. Sfiso Ramara, SABC News.
Now, here's a quick reminder of the results from the weekend's action. You'll see it's a full rundown of what's happened since Friday night. A 1-0 win for Cape Town sitting against Free State Stars. And Ajax Cape Town going to Sisa Dukashi, coming back with a full 3 points. And then Polokwane City against SuperSport United. A humdinger of a match there. 5-goal thriller that SuperSport United won at the old Peter Mokaba Stadium. Golden Arrows against Kaizer Chiefs. Something the Kaizer Chiefs are definitely ruining already. It's a 1-0 draw against Golden Arrows at the FNB Stadium. Then yesterday, 3 matches played. Mamelodi Sundowns are 2-0 beating Orlando Pirates. There's 2 matches in a row that Pirates have lost to the 2 title contenders. Platinum Stars are beating Highlands Park 1-0. Highlands Park definitely looking that they're going to be going through back to the NFD anytime soon. And Bidvest Wits are staying top of the log on 3 points with a 1-0 victory over Maritzburg United. A quick look to see exactly what's happening with log standings so you can see exactly where it is. We're talking about where the action really is. As you can see, not much going on in terms of movements, but in terms of points, well, Bidvest Wits are solidifying their lead at the top on 3 points ahead on 57 points. Mamelodi Sundowns are now 54 points and Cape Town City on 52 points. Kaizer Chiefs can still spoil the party for someone. They're definitely not going to be winning the league at all because mathematically they can only ever get 56 points and already Wits are in 57, but they can still spoil someone's party. SuperSport United, Polokwane City and Maritzburg United bringing up the rear in Ajax Cape Town, joining them in the top 8 at the expense of Orlando Pirates. Let's have a look and see what's happening when I talk about the expense of Orlando Pirates. Golden Arrow sitting on 9 points. Orlando Pirates moving downwards, sitting on 31 points with only 3 matches to go. Platinum Stars, Bloem Celtic, they're really not out of the woods yet, especially Bloem Celtic on 26 points. It's just 4 points ahead of where Highlands Park is sitting in the relegation zone. As you can see, Baroka and Highlands Park definitely looking like they miss the NFD. Now, Arsenal are back in the hunt to qualify for Champions League spots after Arsene Wenger finally got the better of Jose Mourinho in a 2-0 win over Manchester United, while Liverpool were held to a 0-0 draw by Southampton. Now, Wenger had failed to win any of his previous 14 competitive clashes against Mourinho, dating back to 2004, with his only victory of his old rival coming in the 2015 Community Shield. The Gunners' boss brought an end to that frustrating streak at just the right time. His goals from Granit Xhaka and Danny Welbeck improved Arsenal's chances of salvaging a troubled season by finishing in the top 4. 6th place Arsenal are now 6 points behind 4th place Manchester City with 4 games to play, while Pep Guardiola's side are left with only 3 matches. Now, Eliud Kipchoge ran the quickest recorded marathon on Saturday, crossing the line of the Monza Formula 1 track in 2 hours and 25 seconds, but missing out on a bold attempt to break the 2-hour barrier. The 32-year-old's time smashed the official mark of 2 hours, 2 minutes and 57 seconds set by fellow Kenyan Dennis Kimet in Berlin in 2014, but will not enter the record books largely due to the specialized pacemaking system used. Kipchoge and the event's only other competitors, Eritrean Zesinai Tadese and Ethiopian Lalisa Desisa, ran behind an arrowhead of pace setters to reduce drag, and a car beaming a green line on the road behind it to show the required speed for the sub-2 hours target. In 2014, Runner's World magazine predicted a sub-2 under normal race conditions would not happen until 2075, based on analysis of more than 10,000 top marathon performances. The sub-2 hour mark required a pace below 4 minutes and 35 seconds per mile, which the determined Kipchoge managed to stick to until falling behind the pace car in the last 2 laps of the 2.4-kilometer circuit. The youngest competitor, 26-year-old Desisa, fell off the pace first and finished in 2 hours 14 minutes and 10 seconds, followed by the oldest, 35-year-old Tadese, in 2 hours 6 minutes and 51 seconds.
I am a happy man to run a marathon in 2 hours. So I think that the world now is just 25 seconds away.
And South African speedster Akane Simbini upstaged an illustrious field, including Asafa Powell, Justin Gatlin and Andre de Grasse, to win the men's 100 meters at the opening Diamond League meeting of the season on Friday. He finished in a time of 9.99 seconds.
Simbini coming away the top 4 man, and Asafa Powell takes second.
Elaine Thompson and Daphne Sheepers provided another rematch of the last 2 major championships as they met again in the women's 200 meters. The Jamaican led off the bend and broke further away down the final straight to win in 22.19 seconds.
Now look
look at Semenya. How easy does Semenya look?
And South Africa's golden girl and Olympic champion Caster Semenya easily won the women's 800 meters in 1 minute 56.61 ahead of Kenya's Margaret Wambui. Her world-leading time was a full 4 seconds faster than her season's best and a new meeting record.
But look at these first two. Semenya wins it, Wambui in second place, Some in third place.
And on that note, that's where we leave it with the sport. We now have the Pan-African Parliament that's in its first session for the year. We go back there live right now.
In solving the problems that we are experiencing. This being said, I would like to invite the personal representative of the South African government, the Vice Minister of Cooperation and International Relations, to deliver his welcoming remarks. You have the floor, sir.
Your Excellency, President of the Pan-African Parliament, the Honorable Roger Nkodo Dang, Your Excellency, Roch Marc Christian Kabore, the Honorable President of the Republic of Burkina Faso, His Excellency, Professor Arthur Mutharika, President of the Republic of Malawi, Speakers of the Nationalist Parliaments, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors and High Commissioners, Members of the Diplomatic Corps, Honorable Members of the Pan-African Parliament, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am humbled to be afforded this opportunity to welcome you to our country. Permit me to extend our warmest greetings to all of you on behalf of the South African government and the people of the Republic of South Africa. Allow me to also congratulate the new chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Moussa Faki Mahamat, following his election at the summit in January 2017. His leadership will enable us to build on the recorded successes and continue to pursue our shared vision and trajectory as encapsulated in the African Union's Agenda 2063. I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate the new members of the Pan-African Parliament who were sworn in today and wish them well as they begin their tenure. Their fresh ideas and skills will complement the experience and institutional memory of the honorable members who have been in the service of our people for a while. Honorable President, allow me also to extend my congratulations to you for the leadership you have demonstrated as President of the Pan-African Parliament. Mr. President, distinguished guests, we remain committed to the strengthening of our continental bodies and mechanisms, and therefore wish to assure you of our continued support to the Pan-African Parliament. Our leadership and government remain available for engagements with yourselves on issues you may wish to raise with us at all times. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that your stay in South Africa is beneficial to the continent's citizens, and as such, we will continue to create an enabling and conducive environment for this purpose. As you are aware, Africa's developmental agenda can only be achieved within a peaceful, stable, and favorable condition. It is therefore heartening that you have decided to utilize the occasion of this fourth ordinary session to debate issues of peace and security in Africa. We trust that your input will further strengthen the continent's peace and security mechanisms and propel us towards realizing Agenda 2063's vision of silencing the guns by the year 2020. Your Excellencies, we are conscious that this ever-changing international environment requires us to adapt our strategies in pursuit of shared prosperity. Critical to this are our endeavors to transform the African Union in order to improve the implementation of our decisions. We therefore support the ongoing work being undertaken by His Excellency President Kagame and his team to find the best methods to transform the African Union to meet our current challenges. It is pleasing that during this session, you will debate and reflect on this important transformative process. In essence, we live in an era of digital revolution, and Africa cannot afford to remain behind. This fourth industrial revolution shall be properly managed to ensure that we address persistent inequalities and poverty. Our African youth are better placed to benefit from this revolution. In this regard, the role of youth in Africa's development must and will receive a special focus during the upcoming AU 2017 Mid-Year Summit, which will be held under the theme, Harnessing the Demographic Dividend Through Investment in Youth. Our Honorable President, ladies and gentlemen, our youth and society at large shall actively participate in our efforts to build a peaceful and prosperous continent. The Pan-African Parliament, therefore, is an important organ that enables us to ensure active citizenry and promote participatory democracy. Active citizenry will not only assist us to realize our Agenda 2063 vision and trajectory, but will go a long way in enabling us to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I am aware that a report of the brainstorming session on the Sustainable Development Goals, role of parliaments, will be presented in this session. I therefore must commend you for the sterling work in this review and believe that you will continue to robustly engage the substance of this report. Mr. President, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by congratulating you on successfully participating in the AU election observer missions, as well as the fact-finding missions in the past year and in early 2017. I cannot overemphasize the importance of the Pan-African Parliament's oversight role in pursuit of peace and security, the promotion of democracy and good governance, as well as promoting economic growth on our continent. And therefore, I wish you a successful fourth session and fruitful deliberations. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Excellence, Monsieur
Thank
le
you
Ministre.
very much, Your Excellency, Honorable Minister.
Comme je l'ai dit,
As I said,
vous recevez aujourd'hui des éminentes personnalités
you're receiving
dont
today
dérouler le CV ne sert plus à
special
rien.
guests
Je voudrais tout simplement
who are
inviter humblement
famous and well known.
Son Excellence
I'd like
le
very
professeur
humbly
Arthur Peter Mutharika
invite His Excellency
délivrer
Professor
ses
Arthur
sages
Mutharika
conseils
to
au Parlement
deliver
panafricain,
his
à
wise
l'Afrique tout
advice
entière,
to the Pan-African
réunie
Parliament
ici ce jour.
and to
Excellence, Monsieur le
the
Président
entire
de la République
Africa.
du Malawi,
Your Excellency,
je vous
President
prie
of
de
the
bien
Republic
vouloir
of
prendre la
Malawi,
parole.
you're kindly invited to take the floor.
Excellency, Rockmark Christian Kabore, President of the Republic of Burkina Faso, Your Excellency, Dr. Gertrude Mutharika, First Lady of the Republic of Malawi, Your Excellency, Dr. Roger Nkondo Dang, President of the Pan-African Parliament, distinguished honorable members of the Pan-African Parliament, His Excellency Dr. Ikana Chikombiro, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of the African Union to the United States, Ms. Maja Kotkovi, President of the National Assembly of Serbia, His Excellency Pedro Roges, President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, honorable members of the Pan-African Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. It is with immense pleasure that I stand to address this African August House, and I'm extremely thankful for being invited to be with you today. In a special way, I'm also delighted to share this special moment with my brother, His Excellency Rockmark Kabore from Burkina Faso. Let me share that Malawi, I have been promoting the 3 pillars for development. These are patriotism, integrity, and hard work. Every time I think about integrity and honesty, I always remembered that Burkina Faso literally means land of honest people. It reminds us, my brother, of one of the critical values of the African needs, the need for honesty and integrity. Mr. President, this August gathering occupies an important place in the destiny of Africa. We have met as African parliamentarians. We represent parliaments that also represent African people from every part of this continent. This parliament, therefore, is founded on the principles of Pan-Africanism. Since the early 1960s, be it in the diaspora or here at home in Africa, African people have always aspired to pursue a common goal. In those days, Black Americans and Africans here on the continent understood themselves as sons and daughters of one Africa, and also a common goal to pursue. It was on the same spirit of Pan-Africanism that organized African unity was founded. This is where the idea of African unity came from. We believe in standing together in a united front. We believe that united we are rock, divided we are sand. Our national boundaries should never be an excuse for division. I've used the word excuse because excuses are not reasons anyway. From the 1890 High Treaty to the 1964 resolution on border disputes by African states in Cairo, there has never been a reason for disrespecting the territorial integrity and sovereignty of African nations. Africa did not come to be here by mistake. It is then wise to remember that we coexist peacefully because our fathers who founded these countries we gather today of our unity in spite of our boundaries. In 1964, we also pledged that we respect the borders we found set by colonialism. In Resolution 1717, with the first honor session of the OU, all member states pledged, and I quote, to respect the borders existing in the achievement of national independence, end of quote. The most outstanding of those forefathers was Julius Nyerere, who sponsored the resolution and led in Tanzania to play an active role in respecting the territorial integrity that we inherited. Paradoxically, our unity unity lies in the borders that divide us. On 6 March 1997 in Accra, the founding president of Tanzania, Nyerere himself, said we must continue to respect the boundaries we found. And I quote, without unity, there is no future for Africa. End of quote. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to emphasize the need for us in this parliament to see ourselves as one people with one goal. It is impossible for this parliament to achieve anything if we cannot share a common goal. Let us be guided by the wisdom of our people, who in their proverb they say, let's quote, he who does not know where he is going will never know whether he has arrived. End of quote. However, let me quote again, he who does not know where he's coming from cannot know where he's going. End of quote. As Africans, we can best share a sense of a common destiny when we cultivate a shared critical consciousness of our history. I'm therefore delighted to note that this parliament considered African history as an important subject to be discussed. I'm looking forward to the time when the African Union can consider a common African history, and that every African child could learn, regardless where they are, where they come from. We need to share a common narrative that binds our solidarity. The point I'm drawing is simple. We speak without integration. We speak about integration at various levels across the continent and in our regional blocs. But there can never be meaningful integration in Africa without a shared critical consciousness of our people. We always talk about social, political, and economic conservation and integration. But the first point of integration needs to be the way we think and define ourselves. A child born in one nation must grow up realizing that he or she shares with a child born in another country. It will be easier for those children to work together, fight together, and conquer together one day. As we gather here, we would have many wars to fight.